At a family gathering, my uncle tried to embarrass me in front of everyone for not helping him pay off his debt. He pointed at me and shouted, "You owe us for your success." I stood up, pulled out a piece of paper, and said, "Then explain this." When he saw it, his face turned pale. I never thought a simple family gathering could turn into one of the most satisfying moments of my life, but it did. To give you some background, my family has never been very stable. There's always been drama, about money, old grudges, or just petty arguments. I've spent most of my life staying away from it, but I still try to be polite. I keep my distance but show up for big events, partly because I feel like I have to, and partly to keep things looking normal. Now, my uncle, let's call him Frank, has always been the troublemaker in the family, but not in a sad, misunderstood way. No, Frank is the kind of person who blames everyone else for his problems, never takes responsibility, and always has some new plan to get rich fast. He never keeps a job for long, always has excuses for why things go wrong, and is constantly borrowing money, promising to pay it back. Spoiler, he never does. I've never gotten involved in his messes. I worked really hard to get where I am today. I didn't grow up with money. I worked multiple jobs, took out loans, and gave up a lot to build my career. No handouts, no shortcuts, but according to Frank, my success was because of the family. Now, back to the gathering. It was a big family reunion at my cousin's house. I didn't really want to go, but I knew skipping it would cause more drama, and I didn't want to deal with that. At first, everything was fine, small talk, decent food, catching up with cousins I actually liked. But then Frank stood up, cleared his throat, and walked to the middle of the room. The moment I saw his smug look, I knew something was coming. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, dragging out his words like he was putting on a show, "I want to talk about something important, something that affects not just me, but all of us." People quieted down and paid attention. I took a sip of my drink and prepared myself. "You see," he went on, "family is about supporting each other. It's about being there when someone needs help. But some people here," he paused and looked right at me, "seem to have forgotten that." I could feel the tension in the room. I sighed, already tired of whatever he was about to say. "My dear nephew here," he said, pointing at me dramatically, "has done very well for himself, big house, nice car, vacations, living the good life, and that's great, really it is." His tone was fake and sarcastic. "But what about the people who helped you get there? What about the family that supported you, raised you, and made sacrifices so you could have the opportunities you did?" I just stared at him, not reacting, as he kept talking. "I've been going through a tough time," he said, shaking his head and playing the victim. "All I've asked for is a little help, a little generosity from someone who has more than enough. But instead, I get ignored, left to struggle while my own family lives in luxury." People started whispering. Some looked at me curiously, while others just seemed uncomfortable. My mom, sitting across the room, was already rubbing her temples. She knew Frank was full of it. "But that's not how family should be, is it?" Frank said, his voice getting louder. "Family helps each other. Family doesn't turn their back when someone is drowning. So I ask you all, is it fair that my own nephew refuses to help me while he sits on a fortune?" And there it was, his big, dramatic accusation. He stood there, waiting for the room to react, expecting people to turn on me. Maybe he thought they'd pressure me into giving him money, but instead, the room went silent. Everyone was looking at me. I let the silence hang for a moment before I stood up. I wasn't angry, if anything, I was amused, because Frank didn't know I was ready for this. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and held it up. "That's really interesting, Frank," I said calmly, "because if I owe you so much, maybe you can explain this." I unfolded the paper and showed it to everyone. Frank's face turned white the second he saw it. It was a legal document, a contract, with his signature on it, and it showed something very interesting. Frank's face lost all color when he saw the paper. He knew exactly what it was, but I wasn't going to let him wiggle out of this. I held it up higher so everyone could see. "This," I said, my voice steady but firm, "is a signed loan agreement between Frank and me." The room went completely silent. I turned to the crowd to make sure everyone was paying attention. A few years ago, when Frank was in a tough spot, his words, not mine, I lent him a lot of money, but I wasn't stupid. I made him sign a contract saying he'd pay me back in 2 years. I paused to let that sink in. That was 5 years ago. People started shifting in their seats, whispering to each other. My mom sighed and shook her head. She wasn't surprised. I turned back to Frank, who was now sweating. "You never paid me back," I said, my voice sharp. Not a single cent. And you never planned to, did you? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I wasn't done. You want to talk about family, Frank? I asked, stepping closer. You say family supports each other, but what do you call lying, manipulating, and stealing? His face twitched. It's not like that, he stammered. I was going to pay you back, but what? I cut him off. You've had 5 years, and now, instead of trying to pay me back, you're standing here in front of everyone, trying to guilt me into giving you even more money. The room was tense. No one was on Frank's side now. Even the relatives who usually gave him the benefit of the doubt looked disgusted. But then, just when I thought I had him cornered, he snapped. Frank suddenly pointed a shaking finger at me, his face turning red. Oh, don't act so high and mighty, he yelled. You think you're better than us just because you have money? You think you did everything on your own? Who do you think raised you? Who fed you when you were a kid? Who made sacrifices so you could go to school? His voice got louder and angrier. You owe us, all of us. You wouldn't be here without this family. Ah, there it was, the real reason behind his little speech. I should have seen it coming. Frank wasn't just after my money. He wanted to rewrite history. He wanted to make it seem like my success was his success, like I owed the family everything. I took a deep breath, then slowly pulled out another piece of paper. Okay, Frank, I said, keeping my voice calm. Since we're talking about the past, let's talk about the real sacrifices. I unfolded the second document and turned to the crowd. Mom, I called. Do you remember this? She squinted at the paper, then let out a bitter laugh. Oh, I definitely remember that. I turned back to Frank. This, I said, is proof that when I was 18, I had to get a job while going to school because our dear Uncle Frank drained my mom's savings account. $155,000. Gone just like that. Gasps filled the room. Frank's eyes darted around, looking for a way out. That was a mistake, he stuttered. I didn't mean to. But you did it, I said sharply. And did you ever pay it back? Silence. I turned to my younger cousins. When I was in college, I worked double shifts at a gas station. I ate instant noodles for weeks. And you know why? I pointed at Frank. Because of him. Because my mom, his own sister, had to take out a second mortgage just to keep us afloat. The whispers grew louder. Some of my aunts looked at Frank like he was something disgusting. I wasn't finished. You want to talk about sacrifices, Frank? What about mom skipping doctor's appointments because she couldn't afford them? What about me begging for extra shifts just to pay the electricity bill? What about all the times you promised to pay us back and then just disappeared? Frank's jaw clenched, his face bright red, but before he could try to twist the story again, I stepped forward and finished him off. And let's not forget the best part, I said, my voice full of sarcasm. After all the lies and the money you stole, you had the nerve to show up at my graduation and ask for more. Everyone gasped. Frank's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He looked around wildly, realizing no one was on his side. I turned to the rest of the family. So, tell me, does that sound like someone who deserves my help? More silence. Frank was breathing heavily, his fists clenched. This is all a setup, he growled. You're just trying to turn everyone against me. I laughed, actually laughed. I don't need to turn anyone against you, Frank. You did that all by yourself. He looked around desperately. His usual tricks weren't working. No one was defending him. He was alone. Then, just when I thought he might give up, Frank did something I'll never forget. He lunged at me. He came at me like a wild animal, his face full of rage. For a second, I thought he was going to hit me, right in the middle of a family gathering. But before he could touch me, my cousin Mark, who's built like a football player, grabbed Frank midair and slammed him onto the couch. The room exploded into chaos. My aunt screamed. My Uncle George jumped up, ready to step in. Frank thrashed around, cursing, his face bright red. Get off me, you piece of— Enough, Mark shouted, shoving him back down. You don't get to pull this crap. I took a deep breath, my hands clenched into fists. I had expected a fight, but not this. Are you out of your mind? My mom snapped, storming over. You're trying to attack your own nephew because he wouldn't bail you out. Frank was furious, but he was also trapped. He knew if he threw another punch, someone would call the cops. And then, something unexpected happened. My Aunt Patricia, who's usually quiet at gatherings, stood up. What she said changed everything. You know what? She said, her voice shaking with anger. I've had enough of this. I wasn't going to say anything, But since Frank wants to talk about who owes who, let's talk about the money he stole from me. Wait, what? Frank's head snapped toward her. Pat, what the hell are you? You took my husband's life insurance money, she said. The room froze. I felt my stomach drop. This was news to me. Patricia's husband, Uncle Rick, had died almost 10 years ago. He was a hard-working man, a good man, everyone in the family respected him. What are you talking about? Frank laughed nervously, but he wouldn't look her in the eye. You tricked me, Patricia hissed, her hands shaking. After Rick died, I was grieving. I trusted you, and you told me you had a great investment opportunity that would double the money. I gave you $330,000. Frank, that was supposed to be for my kids, and you lost it all. People gasped. Frank shook his head frantically. I didn't lose it. It just didn't. Shut up. Patricia's voice cracked. You told me you'd pay it back in a year. It's been 10. Where's my money, Frank? Frank stammered, looking around, desperate for a way out. I stepped forward. Wow. First my mom's savings, then my money, and now Patricia's life insurance payout. I let out a bitter laugh. Tell me, Frank, how many other people here did you scam? Silence. Then another voice. I let him borrow $5,000 last year, my cousin Robert muttered. He said he just needed a little to get back on his feet. Never saw a dime back. More people started speaking up. I gave him $3,000. I gave him $3,000. I gave him 10,000. One by one, half the room started sharing their stories. Frank had taken money from everyone, and suddenly, I realized what this was really about. This wasn't just about getting money from me. Frank was drowning, and the only way he knew how to survive was to find someone else to take advantage of. That person was supposed to be me, but now he was screwed. Frank was breathing hard, his head darting around the room. Okay, look, he said, holding up his hands. I know things got out of hand, but I can fix this. I just need a little more time, a little more help, if we all pitch in. Are you seriously asking us for more money? I snapped. Frank flinched, then, without another word, he ran for the door. Frank, someone yelled, but he didn't stop. He pushed past people, almost knocked over a kid, grabbed his coat, and ran outside, and just like that, he was gone. Frank thought he could run away from everything. He thought he could keep lying, stealing, and manipulating his way through life, leaving behind broken promises and empty bank accounts. But this time, he messed with the wrong people. The second he ran out the door, the family exploded into chaos. My mom was furious. My Aunt Patricia was about to cry. My cousins were angry. And me? I was done. I turned to the room. We have enough proof to take him down. Let's do it. Patricia nodded. I want my money back. So do I, Robert said. One by one, everyone Frank had scammed stepped forward. So, we made a plan. Patricia went to her lawyer the next morning with all her evidence, bank statements, emails, texts, everything. Since Frank had tricked her into giving him the life insurance money with false promises, her lawyer said it was fraud, a crime. Next, I found my loan agreement with Frank, the one he signed but never paid back. Since it was a legal document, I filed a lawsuit against him. Then, one by one, other family members did the same. Robert, my mom, a few aunts, even a cousin in Florida, all of them took legal action. By the time we were done, Frank was facing multiple lawsuits and a fraud investigation. Frank had burned bridges in the family, but he still had friends and connections, people who might believe his lies. So, we made sure they knew the truth. My cousin Sarah, who's great with social media, took the lead. She posted everything, screenshots of texts, proof of bank transfers, even the legal documents. She didn't tag Frank, but it didn't matter. The post went viral in our community. People commented, shared, and messaged their own stories. Turns out, Frank had scammed more than just family. An old landlord said Frank skipped out on rent. A former coworker said Frank stole money from a company Christmas party. Someone even found a GoFundMe page Frank had set up for a fake medical emergency. Frank had been running his scams for years, and now everyone knew. After about 2 weeks, we found out Frank was hiding at a friend's house. Turns out, his business had failed, his credit was maxed out, and with all the lawsuits, he was broke. He called my mom, begging, please, just tell them to drop the lawsuits. He pleaded, I'll pay everyone back, I swear. Mom laughed. Oh, like how you promised to pay me back? Like how you promised Patricia? Like how you promised everyone? Silence. Then, in the most pathetic voice I've ever heard, he said, I have nowhere to go. Mom smirked. Not my problem, Frank. And then she hung up. Frank tried calling other family members. Nobody answered. He tried reaching out to friends, but they had all seen the social media posts. They weren't falling for his tricks anymore. Within a month, Frank had lost everything. His car was repossessed. He was evicted from his apartment. His business was gone. And then, the final blow, Patricia's lawyer won the fraud case. The court said Frank had to pay back every cent of the $330,000 he stole from her. But guess what? He had no money. So, they took part of his paycheck from every job he tried to get. He tried working under the table, but word got around. Nobody trusted him anymore. It's been about a year since we took Frank down. He still owes thousands to multiple family members. Nobody talks to him. He bounces between low-paying jobs, barely getting by. He has no support system, no friends, nothing. And me? I'm doing great, still successful, still thriving, and best of all, completely free of him. Last I heard, he tried calling my mom again. She didn't even pick up. And that was the best revenge of all.
The notification popped up on my screen at exactly 3:47 p.m., an email that would change everything. Internal position, Senior Operations Manager. My heart raced as I scanned the requirements. 5 years of experience? Check. Master's degree? Check. Leadership experience? Double check. After years of grinding away at middle management, this was my shot. I'm Maggie. And until that moment, I thought I had it all figured out. Good job, supportive family, and what I believed was an unshakable bond with my younger sister, Yesenia. Funny how one dinner can shatter everything you thought you knew. Dad, can you pass the potatoes? I asked, trying to contain my excitement during our weekly family dinner. The familiar scent of Mom's pot roast filled the dining room, and the clink of silverware provided a comfortable backdrop to our usual banter. So, I started, unable to hold it in any longer. Guess who's up for senior management? Mum's face lit up. Oh, honey, that's wonderful. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. Isn't it wonderful, Stuart? Dad nodded, his mouth full of pot roast. But it was Yesenia's reaction that caught my attention. Her fork stopped midway to her mouth, and something flickered across her face. Something I couldn't quite place. That's great, she said, her voice oddly flat. When would you start? Well, I still need to interview, I explained, watching her carefully, but if I get it, it would be next month. The salary increase alone would be life-changing. Life-changing, Yesenia echoed, pushing her peas around her plate. You already make more than most people our age, Mags. Mom shot her a look. Yesenia. What? I'm just saying. She shrugged, but there was an edge to her voice I'd never heard before. Some of us are still trying to get our foot in the door while others just keep climbing. Dad cleared his throat. Your sister's worked hard, Yesenia. But you're doing well too, aren't you? That temp position at Maggie's company is going well? It's fine, she muttered, then suddenly brightened. Actually, Khalil seems really happy with my work. He mentioned possibly making it permanent. My stomach twisted slightly. Khalil was my direct supervisor, and this was the first I'd heard about Yesenia's potential permanent position. I'd helped her get the temp job 3 months ago, thinking it would be a good stepping stone for her. That's wonderful news, Mom beamed. Both my girls moving up in the world. I forced a smile, but something felt off. The conversation shifted to Dad's golf game, but I couldn't shake the unease. As we cleared the table, I heard Yesenia's whispered voice from the kitchen. Dad, can I talk to you for a minute? It's about Maggie. I lingered by the dining room, straining to hear more, but Mom called me to help with dessert. When I returned, Dad was looking at me strangely, and Yesenia wore an expression I'd never seen before, something between concern and triumph. Later that night, as I drove home, my phone buzzed with a text from Genesis, my closest friend at work. Hey, weird question. Did you know Yesenia was in Khalil's office for like an hour today? I stared at the message, remembering Yesenia's strange reaction at dinner, the whispered conversation with Dad. And now this. A chill ran down my spine as I realized something wasn't adding up. No, I typed back. I didn't know that. Genesis's response was immediate. Watch your back, girl. Something's not right. I pulled into my driveway, killed the engine, and sat in the darkness. The excitement of the promotion opportunity had been replaced by a gnawing anxiety. For the first time in my life, I wondered if I really knew my sister at all. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Genesis. BTW. Heard Khalil talking about the promotion candidates today. Your name came up, but not in a good way. I gripped my steering wheel, knuckles turning white. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but I didn't want to believe it. Not Yesenia, not my little sister. But as I replayed dinner in my mind, her reactions, her words, that whispered conversation, I couldn't ignore the warning bells anymore. Something was happening behind the scenes, and my own sister might be orchestrating my downfall. I took a deep breath and typed back to Genesis, "Tell me everything you know. Don't leave anything out." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Whatever Genesis was about to tell me, I had a feeling my world was about to turn upside down. The next morning, the office felt different. People who usually stopped by my desk for coffee chat hurried past with quick, awkward nods. Even Janet from accounting, who normally couldn't shut up about her cats, barely made eye contact in the break room. Did I suddenly become invisible? I muttered, stirring my coffee. Genesis appeared beside me, her face tight with concern. "We need to talk. Now." She led me to the small courtyard outside where employees usually took their smoke breaks. The morning air was crisp and the space was mercifully empty. "Okay, spill it," I said, wrapping my hands around my warm coffee cup. Genesis leaned against the brick wall. "Remember that happy hour last week? The one you missed because of your dentist appointment?" I nodded. "Well, Yesenia was there. She got pretty friendly with everyone, especially Khalil. And she said some things about you." My stomach dropped. "What kind of things?" "She told Khalil you've been taking credit for her work on the Thompson project. Said you've been pressuring her to cover for your mistakes because you're her sister." Genesis's voice was gentle, but each word felt like a slap. "She made it sound like you've been manipulating her since she started here." I nearly dropped my coffee. "That's insane. I helped her get this job. The Thompson project was completed before she even started." "I know that," Genesis said. "But Khalil doesn't. And there's more. She implied you've been bad-mouthing him to other department heads, saying he plays favourites and holds you back." The courtyard seemed to spin. "That's why everyone's acting weird? They believe her? People love drama, Mags. And Yesenia, she's good at playing the victim. Really good." Just then my phone buzzed. A meeting request from Khalil for later that afternoon. My hands shook as I showed it to Genesis. "Go," she said firmly. "But be careful. Don't let him see how much this affects you." The rest of the morning crawled by. At 2 p.m, I knocked on Khalil's office door, my heart pounding. "Come in, Maggie." His usual warmth was gone, replaced by professional detachment. "Please sit down." I perched on the edge of the chair, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Is everything okay?" He shuffled some papers on his desk. "I wanted to discuss your application for the senior position. There have been some concerns raised about your management style." "Concerns?" I echoed, though I knew exactly what was coming. "Several colleagues have expressed worries about how you handle team dynamics. There's also the matter of the Thompson project." "The project I completed 3 months ago? Before Yesenia started here?" I interrupted, unable to help myself. Khalil's eyebrows rose slightly. "I didn't mention Yesenia." "No, but she mentioned me, didn't she? At the happy hour last week." His expression shifted. "Your sister seemed genuinely distressed about the situation. As her direct supervisor, I have to take these allegations seriously." "Allegations?" I laughed, but there was no humour in it. "Khalil, I've worked here for 5 years. You know me. You know my work." "I thought I did," he said quietly. "But family dynamics can be complicated." As I left his office, my phone lit up with a text from Yesenia. "Hope your meeting went well. Love you, sis." I found Genesis at her desk and grabbed her arm. "I need a drink." 20 minutes later, we sat in a quiet corner of O'Malley's bar, and I told her everything. "That little snake," Genesis hissed, signalling for another round. "You know what this means, right? She's not just after your promotion, she's trying to take your whole position. But why? My voice cracked. I've always supported her, always helped her. Maybe that's exactly why, Genesis said thoughtfully. Some people can't stand feeling indebted. They'd rather destroy you than admit they needed your help. I stared into my glass, remembering all the times I'd covered for Yesenia growing up, all the times I'd helped her with school, with job applications, with everything. What am I supposed to do now? Genesis's eyes narrowed. First, we document everything, every project, every email, every interaction. Then, she paused as her phone buzzed. Her eyes widened as she read the message. What? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. You're not going to believe this, she said, turning her phone toward me. Yesenia just sent a company-wide email thanking everyone for their support during this difficult time. She's painting herself as the victim of workplace harassment. I grabbed the phone, reading the message twice. My sister had just declared war, and she'd done it in front of the entire company. Game on, I whispered, finishing my drink. If she wants to play dirty, let's play. The rejection email arrived on a Friday morning. I read it 3 times, each word burning deeper than the last. We regret to inform you, other qualified candidates wish you continued success. My phone rang. Mom. Honey, Yesenia just told us about the promotion, she said, her voice dripping with concern. Are you okay? I gripped my desk so hard my knuckles turned white. Did she tell you why I didn't get it? She mentioned something about workplace conflicts. Mum paused. Sweetie, maybe you've been pushing too hard. You know how competitive you can get. Competitive? I laughed sharply. Mum, she lied. She made up stories about me to sabotage my chance at this promotion. Maggie! Mom's voice turned sharp. How could you say that about your sister? She's worried about you. We all are. Worried? She's... A shadow fell across my desk. Khalil stood there gesturing for me to follow him. Mom, I have to go, I said and hung up. In his office, Khalil didn't waste time with pleasantries. The senior position has been filled. I thought you should hear it directly from me. Let me guess. Yesenia got it. He shifted uncomfortably. That's confidential information. Right. I stood up. Just like the confidential information she shared about me. The lies about the Thompson project. The made-up stories about harassment. Maggie, sit down. His voice was firm. Your sister provided detailed examples of concerning behavior. Multiple colleagues corroborated her statements. Corroborated? I pulled out my phone, opened my emails. You mean like this email from 3 months ago, where you congratulated me on completing the Thompson project? Before Yesenia even worked here? Khalil's expression flickered. Or these performance reviews? I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. 5 years of excellence, not a single complaint, until my sister started working here. I understand you're upset. No, you don't understand anything. I stood again. You chose to believe lies from a temporary employee over 5 years of proven work. That's not just bad management, Khalil. It's pathetic. I walked out, ignoring his calls to come back. Genesis was waiting by my desk. That bad? She asked. Worse? I grabbed my purse. I need to talk to Yesenia. Want backup? I shook my head. This is family business. I found Yesenia in the break room, surrounded by a group of co-workers. She was mid-laugh, but her smile died when she saw me. Can we talk? I asked quietly. Privately? The others quickly dispersed, leaving us alone. Congratulations on the promotion, I said, watching her face carefully. She had the decency to look uncomfortable. Maggie, Why? My voice cracked. Why would you do this to me? Do what? Her innocent act was perfect. I just shared my experiences if people chose to believe me. Your experiences? I stepped closer. You mean your lies? The project you never worked on? The harassment that never happened? Maybe that's how you remember it, she said softly, but her eyes were cold. But others saw what you couldn't. How you always have to be the successful one, the perfect one, always overshadowing me. I helped you get this job. Exactly, she snapped. Always the big sister, always the helper. Did you ever think maybe I wanted to succeed on my own? By destroying my career? By creating my own path, she corrected, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe it's time for you to step back. Let someone else shine. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Coming over tonight. We need to talk about your behavior at work. I showed it to Yesenia. You've got them all fooled, don't you? She shrugged, but I caught the slight smile she tried to hide. They're just concerned about you, Mags. We all are. You know what's funny? I said, stepping back. I actually feel sorry for you, because someday all these lies are going to catch up with you, and when they do, I won't be there to help fix it. I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. That's your problem, Maggie. You always think you know best. But look where that got you. I didn't turn around, didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing my face. Instead, I walked straight to Genesis's desk. Remember that opportunity you mentioned last week? I asked. The one with your friend's company? Genesis nodded slowly. Make the call, I said. It's time for me to create my own path. As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Genesis. BTW. Saw something interesting at the company party last night. There's more to this story than you know. Much more. The living room felt smaller than usual with Dad pacing back and forth, Mum perched anxiously on the edge of the couch, and Yesenia sitting there with perfectly practiced concern on her face. This has to stop, Maggie, Dad said, running his hands through his greying hair. This vendetta against your sister is getting out of hand. Vendetta? I stood up, my coffee cup rattling on the table. Have you even asked for my side of the story? We know you're upset about the promotion, Mom started. This isn't about the promotion, I interrupted. This is about Yesenia deliberately sabotaging my career with lies. Yesenia's eyes welled up with tears. See? This is exactly what I was talking about. She can't accept that someone else might be more qualified. More qualified? I pulled out my phone. Should we talk about the Thompson project again? The one you claimed credit for, even though you weren't even working there. That's enough! Dad's voice boomed through the room. Your sister came to us weeks ago, worried about your behavior. She tried to protect you, keep it within the family. But you just couldn't let it go. Protect me? I laughed bitterly. Show them the company-wide email, Yesenia. Show them how you protected me by telling everyone I was harassing you. Mom gasped. You did what? For a split second, Yesenia's mask slipped, but she recovered quickly, wiping away a tear. I had to document everything. HR insisted. After what happened with the client meeting. What client meeting? I demanded. The one where you threw me under the bus about the missing reports? She turned to our parents. She told everyone it was my fault, but she was the one who forgot to submit them. That never happened. I turned to my parents. She's lying. Again. Why would she lie? Dad asked, his voice hard. What would she gain? My job, my reputation, everything I've worked for. Listen to yourself, Yesenia said softly. This paranoia, these accusations. We're worried about you, Mags. Maybe you should talk to someone. My phone buzzed. Genesis again. Got that meeting set up. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. You need to see this. I took a deep breath. You know what? You're right. I do need help. They all looked surprised. I need help understanding how my own family can't see what's happening right in front of them. I grabbed my keys. I need help accepting that my sister is capable of this level of manipulation, and I definitely need help planning my next move. Maggie, please. Mom reached for my arm. We can work this out. I pulled away. Can we? Because right now, you're all choosing to believe convenient lies over asking any real questions. The only one lying here is you, Dad said firmly. Your sister has proof. Witnesses. What do you have? I have the truth, I said quietly. But clearly, that's not enough for this family. Yesenia stood up, arms outstretched. Mags, we just want to help you. Help me? I turned to her. Like you helped me with the promotion? Or like you're helping me now, making our parents think I'm having some kind of breakdown? See? She turned to our parents. This is exactly what I was talking about. The paranoia, the accusations. Stop saying paranoia, I snapped. You know exactly what you're doing, and someday, Everyone else will too. Dad stepped between us. I think you should leave, Maggie. Come back when you're ready to apologize to your sister. Apologize? I looked at each of them. Dad's stern disappointment, Mom's worried confusion, Yesenia's perfect victim act. You know what? You're right. I should leave. I walked to the door, then turned back. But don't expect an apology, and don't expect me to come crawling back when the truth finally comes out. Maggie, please, Mom called after me, but I was already halfway to my car. My phone buzzed again. Genesis. Just got some interesting security footage from the company party. Trust me, you're going to want to see this. I started the engine, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. On my way, I texted back. As I pulled away, I caught a glimpse of my family in the window. Mom crying, Dad comforting her, and Yesenia watching me leave with what looked suspiciously like a smile. Game's not over, sis, I muttered, pressing the accelerator. Not even close. The streetlights blurred as I drove toward Genesis's place, my mind racing with possibilities. Whatever she had found, whatever was on that security footage, I knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow would change everything. Genesis's laptop screen flickered in her dimly lit living room. Watch this, she said, pressing play on the security footage from the company party. The grainy video showed Yesenia and Khalil in what they thought was a private corner. Their body language was intimate, too intimate for a boss and employee. Then something unexpected happened. They kissed. Holy shit, I whispered. Keep watching, Genesis said grimly. The footage continued. They were arguing now. Yesenia's voice came through the speakers, tinny but clear. You promised me that position. I did everything you asked. Khalil glanced around nervously. Lower your voice. You know we can't. Can't what? Tell everyone how long this has been going on? How you hired me specifically to push Maggie out? I felt the blood drain from my face. Genesis paused the video. There's more, she said. But first, someone wants to talk to you. On cue, there was a knock at her door. Genesis opened it to reveal Khalil, looking like he hadn't slept in days. What's he doing here? I stood up, ready to leave. Please, Khalil held up his hands. I need to tell you something. I owe you that much. Genesis nodded encouragingly. Hear him out, Mags. I sat back down, arms crossed. Talk. Khalil sank into a chair. Your sister and I. It started 3 months ago before she even worked here. She approached me at a networking event, seemed interested in my work. Things progressed quickly. Spare me the details, I said coldly. She told me things about you, he continued, made me question your loyalty to the company, suggested you were planning to leave for a competitor. I was stupid enough to believe her. Why are you telling me this now? He pulled out his phone, showed me a text message. Because she's threatening to go to HR about our relationship unless I fire you for harassment. But you're coming clean instead. I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. I'm resigning, he said quietly. First thing tomorrow. I've already written a full statement about everything. The relationship, the manipulation, how we conspired to deny you the promotion. It was wrong. All of it. Genesis leaned forward. And that's not all. Tell her about the emails. Khalil nodded. Yesenia used my computer when I was distracted. She sent emails from my account, making it look like I had concerns about your performance. She deleted them afterward, but IT recovered everything. My hands were shaking. So you have proof? Real proof? Everything, he confirmed, including security footage of her accessing my computer without authorization. That's a fireable offense. Speaking of proof, Genesis interrupted, turning back to her laptop. Watch this last bit. The video showed Yesenia on her phone, speaking quietly but clearly. Dad, you have to believe me. Maggie's becoming unstable. I'm worried about her. No, don't confront her yet. Let me handle it my way. I felt sick. She planned everything. There's one more thing, Genesis said, pulling out a business card. Remember that contact I mentioned? Carson Rogers. He's looking for a senior operations director at his firm. Better salary, better position. Different city. Different city sounds pretty good right now, I admitted. He wants to meet you tomorrow, Genesis smiled. And guess what? They're direct competitors with our company. Khalil cleared his throat. The irony is, Yesenia's lies about you going to a competitor might actually come true. Calm as a bitch, Genesis grinned. My phone buzzed. Another text from Yesenia. Hope you're feeling better, sis. Family dinner tomorrow? I looked at the evidence on Genesis's laptop, then at Khalil's phone, then at Carson's business card. No, I typed back. I have a job interview. 3 dots appeared immediately. What? Where? I smiled, not responding. Let her sweat. What are you going to do? Genesis asked. Nothing, I said, surprising them both. Yet. First, I'm going to ace that interview tomorrow. Then, when I have a signed offer letter in hand, I gestured to the laptop. Then we'll show everyone exactly who my sister really is. Khalil stood up. I'll have my statement ready first thing tomorrow. It's the least I can do. After he left, Genesis poured us both a glass of wine. You know what the best part is? Yesenia has no idea what's coming. No, I said, thinking about my sister's smug face at the family meeting, but she will. My phone buzzed one more time. An email from Carson Rogers himself. Looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. Your reputation precedes you. I smiled, raising my glass to Genesis. To karma, she echoed. And to sisters who don't know when to quit while they're ahead. Carson's office felt different from any I'd been in before, warm, inviting, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He sat across from me, reviewing my portfolio with genuine interest. Not the fake enthusiasm I'd grown used to. Your work on the Thompson project is particularly impressive, he said, looking up. Tell me more about how you handled the client resistance. For the next hour, we discussed strategy, leadership, and vision. No games, no politics, just pure professional respect. I'll be direct, Maggie, he said finally, closing my portfolio. We need someone like you, someone who can build teams, drive results, and maintain integrity under pressure. My heart skipped. I appreciate that, but the salary is double what you're making now, he continued. Full relocation package to Seattle, signing bonus, and complete autonomy over your department. I tried to keep my voice steady. That's generous. It's what you're worth. He leaned forward. And yes, I know about the situation with your sister. My stomach dropped. How? Genesis filled me in. Don't worry. It only confirmed what I already knew about your character, standing your ground while maintaining professionalism. That's exactly what we need here. My phone buzzed. Yesenia again. Why aren't you answering Mom's calls? They're really worried about you. I ignored it. Carson noticed. Family complications don't scare us, he said softly. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is start fresh. When would you need an answer? He slid a folder across the desk. The offer letter's inside. Take the weekend to think about it, but remember, Seattle's a big city. Plenty of room to breathe, to grow, to heal. As I left his office, another text came through, this time from Genesis. Khalil submitted his statement to HR. All hell's breaking loose here. Yesenia's freaking out. I smiled, opening the folder to look at the offer letter. The salary number made me dizzy. My phone rang. Mom again. This time I answered. Where are you? She demanded. Yesenia says you're acting erratic, missing work. I was in a job interview, I cut her off. A very successful one, actually. Silence. Then, what job interview? Senior director position, different company, different city, double the salary. Different city? Her voice cracked. Maggie, you can't just run away from your problems. I'm not running, Mom. I'm walking away. There's a difference. But your sister should be more worried about herself right now, I said calmly. Check your email. I just sent you something interesting. I heard her clicking, then a sharp intake of breath as she watched the security footage. This can't be real, she whispered. It is. And there's more. Ask Yesenia about Khalil's statement to HR. Ask her about the emails she sent from his account. Ask her about... Oh God, Mom interrupted. Your father needs to see this. Everyone's going to see it, Mom. The truth has a way of coming out. Just then, another call beeped through. Yesenia. I switched lines. You bitch, she hissed. What did you do? Me? Nothing. Karma, on the other hand. They're going to fire me, her voice cracked. Everything I worked for. Everything you stole, you mean. Everything you lied about. I deserved that promotion, she shouted. I deserved... Save it for HR, I cut her off. Oh, and Yesenia. I got a new job, director position, twice the salary. Funny how things work out, isn't it? I hung up, hands shaking, but smile firmly in place. My phone immediately lit up with messages. Dad, Mom, Genesis, even Khalil. But the one that caught my eye was from Carson. Dinner tonight. Let's discuss your vision for the department. Seattle's waiting. I looked out over the city, my city for now, and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. I'm in, I texted back. Time for a fresh start. As I walked to my car, one last text came through from Genesis. OMG, Yesenia just got escorted out by security. She's crying about how sorry she is, how she never meant for it to go this far. Too little too late, sister. I put my phone away, started the engine, and headed home to pack. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. And Seattle was looking better by the minute. The offer letter sat on my passenger seat, a ticket to a new life. My phone kept buzzing with family drama, but for the first time in forever, I felt no obligation to answer. Let them deal with the truth they'd been so eager to ignore. I had a dinner to prepare for and a future to plan. I hadn't planned on going to my parents' house one last time, but something pulled me there. Maybe it was the dozen missed calls from Mom, or maybe it was the need for closure. Either way, I found myself standing on their familiar porch, signed offer letter in hand. The door opened before I could knock. Dad stood there, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Come in, he said quietly. We need to talk. The living room was tense. Mom sat in her usual spot, eyes red from crying, and there was Yesenia, makeup streaked down her face, looking smaller than ever. I got a job offer, I said, breaking the silence. In Seattle. Seattle? Mom's voice cracked. But that's so far. That's the point. I placed the offer letter on the coffee table. I start in 2 weeks. Maggie, Yesenia started, but Dad held up his hand. Let your sister speak. I took a deep breath. I came to say goodbye and to make sure you understand exactly why I'm leaving. We saw the videos, Dad said, his voice heavy. Read Khalil's statement. Your mother and I, we owe you an apology. An apology? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You didn't just fail to believe me, Dad. You actively chose to believe the worst about me, your own daughter. I was jealous, Yesenia blurted out. You were always the successful one, the smart one. I just wanted to destroy my career, to make our parents think I was having a mental breakdown, to sleep with my boss for a promotion. She flinched at each accusation. Maggie, please. Mom reached for my hand. We can fix this. As a family. I pulled away. Fix what? The trust that's gone? The relationships that are broken? Some things can't be fixed, Mom. So you're just leaving? Yesenia's voice was small. Running away? Running away? I turned to her. That's rich coming from someone who couldn't handle earning success on her own merit. No, I'm not running away. I'm moving forward, there's a difference. Dad picked up the offer letter, whistled at the salary. This is impressive. It's what I'm worth, I said firmly. What I've always been worth, while you all believed I was crazy or unstable or whatever lies Yesenia fed you. I'm sorry, Yesenia whispered. I never meant... Save it, I cut her off. Your sorry means nothing when you're only sorry because you got caught. My phone buzzed. A text from Genesis. Packed and ready for our celebration dinner. Carson's waiting. I have to go. I stood up. I just wanted you to know that I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. Sometimes betrayal shows you exactly what you're capable of. Will you? Mom hesitated. Will you keep in touch? Maybe. Eventually. But right now, I need space. From all of you. I understand, Dad said, surprising me. Just know that when you're ready, we'll be here. And we'll do better. Yesenia stood up, tears flowing freely now. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe understanding. Someday, maybe, but not today. Today I'm choosing myself. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Yesenia? That karma you're feeling right now? Remember this feeling the next time you try to destroy someone's life. Outside, the evening air felt clean, fresh. My phone buzzed again. Carson this time. Team's excited to meet their new director. Seattle's ready for you. I typed back, on my way to dinner. And Carson, thank you for believing in me. As I drove away, I caught one last glimpse of my family in the rearview mirror. Mom crying on Dad's shoulder, Yesenia standing alone by the window. Part of me ached, but a stronger part felt free. Genesis was waiting outside the restaurant grinning. Ready to celebrate your escape from crazy town? More than ready, I smiled back. You know what's funny? For the first time in my life, I feel completely in control. That's not funny. She linked her arm through mine. That's justice. Inside, Carson stood to greet us, champagne already on the table. To new beginnings, he raised his glass. To new beginnings, I echoed, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Dad. We're proud of you, even if we didn't show it right. Fly high, kiddo. I turned my phone face down. Tomorrow I'd start packing for Seattle. Tomorrow I'd begin my new life. But tonight? Tonight was for celebrating survival, strength, and the sweet taste of rising above it all. The Seattle rain tapped against my office window as I reviewed the quarterly reports. My team had exceeded every target, and Carson's proud smile when I presented the results still warmed me. My phone buzzed. Genesis, who'd joined the company 3 months after me. Guess who I just saw in the lobby? Before I could respond, a knock at my door made me look up. Yesenia stood there, soaked from the rain, looking nothing like the confident manipulator I remembered. Hi, Mags, she said softly. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Sit. She perched on the edge, twisting her hands. Nice office. The view is... Why are you here, Yesenia? She pulled an envelope from her bag. I've been in therapy. Real therapy, not just saying it for show this time. My therapist suggested I write letters to people I've hurt. Yours. Yours was the hardest to write. I didn't take the envelope. And you flew across the country to deliver it? No, she looked down. I flew across the country because I got a job offer here. Different company, entry-level position. I wanted to tell you first, give you the chance to say no. Say no? To me being in the same city, if you don't want me here, I'll turn it down. I leaned back, studying her. The old Yesenia would have played the victim, used tears and manipulation. This version just looked tired. My phone buzzed again. Genesis. Want me to call security? No, I typed back. I got this. You know what's ironic? I said to Yesenia. Everything you did to sabotage me led me here, to this office, this view, this life. So in a weird way, I should thank you. She flinched. I don't deserve thanks. No, you don't, but you also don't control where I live or work anymore. Take the job if you want it. Hope flickered across her face. Really? Really, just remember, this is my city now, my reputation, my success. Try anything like before. I won't, she interrupted. I swear, I'm not that person anymore. My desk phone lit up, Carson calling. Sorry, I need to take this. She stood up. Of course, just... Will you read the letter? When you're ready. I nodded, and she turned to leave. Yesenia? I called after her. She paused. Start fresh. Earn your own success this time. It feels better that way. After she left, I answered Carson's call. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but I just got an interesting email from your old company. Seems they're struggling since you left. Khalil's replacement isn't working out. I smiled. Karma's still doing its job, I see. Speaking of jobs, remember that executive position we discussed? Board approved it this morning. It's yours if you want it. My other line beeped. Mom calling. Once, that would have filled me with dread. Now, can I call you back in 5, Carson? I switched lines. Hi, Mom. Did Yesenia find you? She asked. She was so nervous about seeing you. She did. She seems different. She is. We all are. Mom paused. Your father and I are so proud of you, honey. Not just the success, but how you handled everything. You showed us all what real strength looks like. My eyes burned. Thanks, Mom. After we hung up, I finally opened Yesenia's letter. Pages of honest, raw confessions spilled out. No excuses, no manipulation, just truth. At the bottom, she'd written, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that watching you rise above my betrayal taught me more than any success I tried to steal ever could. Genesis appeared in my doorway. You okay, boss? I smiled, looking out at my rain-soaked city. You know what? I really am. Good, she grinned. Because Carson just sent the executive promotion details to the whole team. We're celebrating tonight. No excuses. I glanced at Yesenia's letter one last time before filing it away. Some wounds need time to heal, but they don't have to define you. Success, real success, isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. My phone lit up with congratulatory messages from my team, from Carson, from my parents, even one from Khalil. You deserved this all along. I'm sorry I couldn't see it then. I stood up, grabbing my coat. Come on, Genesis, let's go celebrate. To Karma, she suggested. No, I smiled, thinking of Yesenia's letter, my new promotion, and the long road that led here. To growth. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming exactly who you were meant to be. The Seattle rain had stopped, and through my window I could see the sun breaking through the clouds. Perfect timing, as always.
The smell of caramelized onions and seared meat filled the kitchen as I put the finishing touches on my signature dish. 25 candles waited on the counter, still in their box, while my parents' voices drifted in from the dining room, cooing over Sophie's latest achievement. Always Sophie. Riley, is dinner almost ready? Mom called out. Sophie has that interview tomorrow morning, remember? I gritted my teeth, carefully plating the braised short ribs. 5 more minutes. The sauce needed to be perfect. A reduction of red wine, beef stock, and fresh herbs I'd been perfecting for months at the restaurant. Mason appeared at my side, sliding a pristine white plate onto the counter. Need help carrying these out? I've got it. The words came out sharper than intended. Sorry, just, you know how they get. That's why I'm here, moral support and all that. He squeezed my shoulder, but quickly stepped back as Sophie breezed into the kitchen. Something smells burnt, she announced, wrinkling her nose. Her perfectly manicured fingers traced along the counter's edge. Did you remember Dad's acid reflux? He can't handle spicy food anymore. It's not spicy, Sophie. I know how to cook for my own family. She smiled, that sugary smile that never reached her eyes. Just looking out for everyone, like always. I carried the plates out one by one, arranging them carefully around the table. Dad barely looked up from his phone, while Mom fussed with Sophie's hair, asking about interview outfits. The candles remained unlit in their box. Before we eat, I said, standing beside my chair, I wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight. This recipe is something I've been working on. Oh, honey, let's just eat while it's hot. Mom interrupted. Sophie needs her rest for tomorrow. I sank into my chair, watching as they took their first bites. The meat should have been fork tender, falling apart with minimal effort. Instead, Sophie made a show of sawing at hers with her knife. It's chewy, she said, setting down her fork, and really salty. Did you taste this before serving? Dad pushed his plate away. It is rather tough. Maybe stick to simpler dishes next time, Riley. That's impossible, I muttered, cutting into my own portion. The meat yielded easily, perfectly cooked. I tested this recipe dozens of times. Sophie took a long sip of water. Well, clearly something went wrong tonight. It happens to everyone, right? Not all of us can be professional chefs. Try it, I said to Mason, who had been quietly eating beside me. Tell them. He cleared his throat. It's actually perfectly... Oh! Sophie suddenly grabbed her throat, face contorting. Something's wrong. It burns. Mom jumped up, rushing to Sophie's side as she continued to gasp and cough. What did you put in this, Riley? Nothing. I swear it's just... Call an ambulance, Dad shouted, already dialing his phone. I stood frozen, watching the chaos unfold. Sophie's performance was Oscar-worthy. The trembling hands, the tears streaming down her face. But when our eyes met across the table, I caught the flash of triumph in her expression. Mason's hand found mine under the table. Riley, we should go. No. I yanked my hand away, fury rising like bile in my throat. I want to know what she did to my food. But nobody was listening. They never did. Mom and Dad huddled around Sophie, who had mysteriously recovered enough to scroll through her phone while they debated which emergency room to visit. I walked into the kitchen, past the box of unlit candles, and opened the trash can. There, beneath some paper towels, lay an empty bottle of hot sauce, Sophie's favorite brand, the kind that could make grown men cry. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about ruining my birthday dinner. This was about making sure I never forgot my place in this family. Well, if Sophie wanted to play games, I could play too, and I played to win. Happy birthday to me, I whispered, letting the trash can lid slam shut. The executive chef position at Maison Rouge felt like a lifeline thrown into choppy waters. I stared at the offer letter, my hands trembling slightly as I read it for the 10th time. You earned this, Mason said, leaning against the prep station. Nina recommended you personally. The kitchen bustled around us, line cooks preparing for dinner service. My last shift as sous chef. Sophie's already texting me about it. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Mom and Dad are worried about you taking on too much responsibility. Maybe you should think this through. Delete it, Mason said, but I was already typing back. The kitchen door swung open and Nina strode in, her chef's whites pristine as always. Riley, a word? In her office, she didn't sit down. The board approved your promotion unanimously, but there's something else. She paused, studying my face. Your sister called the restaurant today. My stomach clenched. What did she want? She expressed concerns about your stability, mentioned some incident at a family dinner. Of course she had. I forced my voice to stay steady. She sabotaged my food and faked an allergic reaction. I figured it was something like that. Nina's expression softened. Look, I've dealt with family like Sophie before. They'll do anything to keep you small. The dinner service that night was flawless. Every dish perfect, every plate a small victory, until I saw Sophie seated at table 7, Kevin beside her, both dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. I'll handle their table, Mason offered, but I shook my head. No, this is my kitchen now. I approached their table, chin high. Welcome to Maison Rouge. Sophie's smile was razor sharp. We had to come congratulate you, though Kevin's father says executive chef positions usually require more experience. Kevin shifted uncomfortably. Sophie, maybe we should... I'm just concerned, she continued, voice dripping honey. After what happened at your birthday, well, pressure can make people crack. I felt the eyes of nearby diners. Would you like to hear tonight's specials? Actually, Sophie leaned forward. I was hoping to speak with your supervisor. There are some health concerns I'd like to discuss. My vision blurred at the edges. I am the supervisor. Oh, well, surely there's someone above you? Later, in the walk-in cooler, I pressed my forehead against a shelf of prepped vegetables, letting the cold seep into my skin. Mason found me there. "The health inspector's coming tomorrow," he said quietly. "Anonymous complaint about food safety protocols." I laughed, a harsh sound in the confined space. She works fast. "Nina's not worried. Our records are perfect. It's not about the inspection." I straightened up, frost crackling under my fingers. "It's about making me look incompetent, unstable. She's trying to poison everything I touch." Mason stepped closer. "Then don't let her. You don't understand. She's been doing this for years. Every achievement, every moment of pride. She finds a way to taint it. So fight back." I turned to face him. "What? You're executive chef now. You have power, influence. Use it." The idea settled in my chest like a hot coal. "That would make me just like her." "No," Mason's voice was firm. "It would make you someone who finally stands up for themselves." My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. "Sophie's worried about you, sweetie. Maybe we should discuss some other career options." I deleted the message without responding. Through the cooler's window, I could see Sophie still at her table, holding court with a group of regular customers who'd wandered over, probably sharing her concerns about the new executive chef's mental state. "You know what the difference is between Sophie and me?" I said, watching her perform. "She destroys things because she can, because it makes her feel powerful." "And you?" I pushed open the cooler door, the warm kitchen air rushing in. "I create things, beautiful things, and if she wants to turn this into a war, fine, but we're playing by my rules now." "Riley, send them the tasting menu," I called to the line. "On the house, let's show my dear sister exactly what her unstable big sister can do." Because Sophie had forgotten something crucial. In this kitchen, I was the one with the power to make or break someone's night. And I'd learned from the best about how to use that power. The bank statement sat on my desk like a loaded gun. Dad's signature on a second mortgage, dated 3 months ago. The same week Sophie had mysteriously acquired her new car. Tina knocked on my office door, her face tight with concern. "Chef, there's someone from the health department here again. 3rd time this week." I folded the paper carefully, tucking it into my jacket. "Let me guess, anonymous complaint? They're focusing on the prep stations this time." She hesitated. "And your sister's review just went live on the city's biggest food blog." Of course it had. I pulled it up on my phone, scanning the carefully crafted destruction. While Maison Rouge once stood as a culinary landmark, recent changes in leadership have led to concerning lapses in quality and safety. The kitchen door burst open, Nina striding in with thunder in her eyes. "Board meeting, now!" In the conference room, faces turned toward me with varying degrees of concern and judgment. Mr. Harrison, Kevin's father and majority stakeholder, spoke first. "These allegations are troubling, Miss Turner." "They're fabricated," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. "My sister has provided documented evidence of multiple health code violations." He slid photographs across the table, close-ups of my prep stations, somehow taken during service hours, and financial records suggesting mismanagement of resources. My throat closed up. The second mortgage. She'd found it too. "I can explain." "Perhaps," Nina cut in. "We should discuss this privately." But Mr. Harrison wasn't finished. "Your father called me personally this morning. He's quite concerned about your mental state." The room tilted slightly. Dad had never called anyone about me before, had never shown enough interest to interfere. "I've increased our profits by 30%, I said, pulling out spreadsheets with trembling hands. "Guest satisfaction is at an all-time high. Except for these reviews," another board member noted, "all from highly respected food critics." All Sophie's friends, more likely. I'd seen them at her table that night, laughing, taking notes. Mason appeared in the doorway, face pale. "Chef, there's a situation in the kitchen." I found Sophie standing at my pass, wearing pristine white designer clothes, examining a plate with theatrical concern. A health inspector hovered nearby, scribbling notes. "What are you doing here?" She turned, eyes wide with manufactured innocence. "Daddy asked me to check on you. He's worried sick about the restaurant's finances." Her voice carried across the kitchen. "All those missing inventory reports?" The missing reports I'd found buried in Kevin's desk last week after he'd volunteered to help organize the office. "Get out." "Riley." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "We're just trying to help. You're clearly overwhelmed. Maybe if you'd listened when we suggested a different career path." I grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. She stumbled, catching herself against a prep station. Containers crashed to the floor, sending marinades and sauces spreading across pristine tiles. "Assault!" Sophie shrieked, holding her arm. "She's completely lost control." The health inspector's pen moved faster. Mason tried to intervene, but Sophie was already pulling out her phone, dialing with shaking fingers. "Daddy, she's having another episode. Yes, worse than my birthday. I don't feel safe." Later, after the inspector left with pages of violations, after Sophie's tearful exit and the board's emergency session, I sat alone in the dark kitchen. Nina found me there, methodically sharpening knives. "They're suspending you pending investigation," she said softly. I fought hard, but with the documented violations and the incident, it wasn't random. The knife edge caught light as I tested it. The mortgage, the missing reports, the perfectly timed inspections. She planned this for months. "Riley, did you know my parents are broke?" I looked up, meeting her worried gaze. "But Sophie's tuition, her car, her apartment, it's all still paid for. They mortgaged their future for her, and she used that money to destroy mine." Nina pulled up a stool. "What are you going to do?" I set down the knife, its edge now razor sharp. "Sophie thinks she's won because she knows how to manipulate people, but I know how to build things from nothing, and I know exactly how to burn it all down. That path leads nowhere good." "No," I agreed, standing up, "but neither does letting her win." The food truck's generator hummed beneath my feet as I prepped for lunch service. 3 weeks since losing my position at Maison Rouge, and already the cramped kitchen felt more like home than that pristine restaurant ever had. Mason wiped condensation from the window. "Lines forming already. They're here for the food," I said, chopping herbs with practiced precision. "Not the drama." But drama found me anyway. Sophie's sleek car pulled into the lot, parking directly in front of my truck. She emerged wearing oversized sunglasses, Kevin trailing behind her like a well-trained puppy. "Health inspection," she called out, waving a badge. "Anonymous tip about improper food storage." The knife stilled in my hand. "That's not a real badge." "No," she smiled. "Kevin's father knows people on the council. They're very concerned about unlicensed vendors in this area." The growing lunch crowd watched our exchange with interest. Sophie played to them, raising her voice. "We're just worried about public safety. After what happened at Maison Rouge." "Your food truck permit," Kevin mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "It might need additional review." Mason stepped between us. "We have all the required documentation." "Documentation can be challenged," Sophie said sweetly, "especially with prior violations on record." I spotted Nina in the crowd, her expression grim. She'd warned me about this, how Sophie would keep pushing until I broke again. "Order up," I called out instead of responding, sliding a container across the counter to my first customer. "House special with extra herbs." Sophie's smile faltered. Did you hear what I said? Perfect timing, I continued, addressing the growing line. Today's special is revenge served cold, a dish I learned from an expert. I met Sophie's gaze, though some people prefer their sabotage hot and public. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sophie's carefully crafted mask cracked slightly. You're unstable, she hissed. Everyone knows it. Really? I turned to Kevin. Tell them about the missing inventory reports you planted. Or should I call your father about the real reason Maison Rouge's numbers didn't add up? Kevin paled. Sophie grabbed his arm, but he shook her off. I can't, he started. Sophie, you said nobody would get hurt. Kevin, shut up. But he was already backing away. You promised it was just about teaching her a lesson. Not all this. The crowd watched, enthralled, as Sophie's perfect facade began to crack. She reached for Kevin, but he was already walking to his car. You're making a scene, she snapped at me. Again. No, I said quietly. I'm making lunch. You're the one putting on a show. Nina stepped forward then, phone in hand. I recorded everything, Riley, including Kevin's confession about the reports. Sophie's face contorted. You think this changes anything? Mom and Dad will never choose me over you? I finished plating another order. I know that's not what this is about anymore. Then what? It's about building something of my own, something you can't touch. I gestured to the line of waiting customers. These people aren't here because of our family drama. They're here because I create something worth having. We'll see about that, Sophie snarled, but her voice shook slightly. She turned on her heel, nearly running to her car. After she peeled out of the lot, Nina approached the window. You okay? I looked down at my hands, steady now as they arranged garnishes. I thought revenge would feel different, more satisfying, and it feels empty. I passed another order to a waiting customer. But this, creating something new, this feels real. Mason bumped my shoulder gently. Speaking of creating something new, we got 3 more catering requests this morning. I nodded, already planning the menus. Sophie might have taken Maison Rouge from me, but she'd given me something unexpected in return, the push I needed to break free. Chef, Tina called from outside. The food blog critics are here, the real ones this time. I straightened my apron, catching my reflection in the steel counter. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd let Sophie destroy her birthday dinner. She was stronger now, focused on building rather than breaking. Let's show them what we can do, I said, reaching for my knives. Because the best revenge wasn't destroying Sophie's world. It was creating my own, far beyond her reach. The local food magazine's cover story sat on my prep counter. My food truck's success splashed across glossy pages. 3 months of grinding work had paid off, until I saw the headline, Rising Star or Family Fraud, The Turner Sisters Restaurant Wars. I crumpled the magazine just as Mason rushed in. Riley, the truck! The acrid smell of burning rubber hit me before I reached the door. All 4 tires slashed, brake fluid pooling underneath. On the side panel, someone had scratched unstable in jagged letters. Security cameras caught everything, Mason said quietly. It was Kevin. Of course it was. Sophie's perfect puppet, trying to earn his way back into her good graces. Nina appeared with 2 police officers, but I barely heard their questions. My phone buzzed. Mom's number. Did you see the article? Her voice trembled. Sophie's devastated. They quoted you saying terrible things about our family. I never gave them an interview. Then who did? A pause. Your father's law firm is losing clients. People are asking questions about Sophie's internship, about the family finances. I ended the call as Tina arrived with our day's supplies. The restaurant supplier won't extend credit anymore. Someone called them about potential fraud. The pieces clicked together. Sophie wasn't just attacking my business, she was scorching the earth around it, making sure I couldn't rebuild. "We have that big catering event tomorrow," Mason reminded me. "The tech company launch? Cancel it." "Riley, we can't serve food from a vandalized truck, Mason. We can't." My voice cracked. The magazine's pages scattered across the ground, Sophie's smiling photo mocking me from every angle. Nina picked up a page. "She's playing a dangerous game." "No," I said, something cold settling in my chest. "She's playing my game now. The restaurant supplies, the magazine. She's using my own tactics against me." "What do you mean?" But I was already dialing Sophie's number. She answered on the first ring. "Enjoying the press coverage?" "You know what's interesting?" I kept my voice steady. How the magazine knew exactly which suppliers to contact, almost like someone had access to Maison Rouge's vendor list. A slight intake of breath. "I don't know what you're—" "Kevin still has the original inventory reports, doesn't he? The ones that would prove embezzlement?" Silence. "Let's meet. Just us. No more proxies, no more games." "Why should I?" "Because I'm done playing defense." I watched brake fluid stain the asphalt black. "And because I know about the trust fund." Another sharp breath. "You're bluffing." Mom's not as careful with her papers as she used to be, especially after a few glasses of wine. I hadn't known for sure until her reaction confirmed it. "Does Kevin know where your designer wardrobe really comes from? That you've been stealing from your own parents?" "Tonight," she said quickly. "The old restaurant." I hung up, turning to find Mason watching me with concern. "Riley, whatever you're planning, help me clean this up." I gestured to the truck. "We have work to do." Nina stepped forward. "This isn't just about the business anymore, is it?" I picked up a torn magazine page, studying Sophie's carefully curated image. She thought teaching me a lesson meant breaking me down, but she taught me something else instead. "What's that?" "That some people only understand their own language." I started gathering supplies, mind already racing with plans. "She wants to play with fire? Fine, let's see who burns first." "You're starting to sound like her," Mason warned. "No." I faced him, feeling calmer than I had in months. "I'm starting to sound like someone who's finally stopped being afraid of her own shadow." The setting sun cast long shadows through the truck's windows, turning everything blood red. Tomorrow's catering event would have been my biggest yet, proof that I could build something lasting from nothing. Instead, I had a different kind of proving to do. "Nina, I need your help accessing some old Maison Rouge records. Mason, call Kevin. Tell him you have information about Sophie he needs to hear. Tina, start calling our regulars. Tell them we're planning something special." "What are you going to do?" Nina asked. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through recent photos until I found it. Sophie's signature on Dad's mortgage papers, perfectly forged. I'm going to give my sister exactly what she wants, all the attention she can handle. Maison Rouge's empty dining room felt like a tomb. Moonlight filtered through unwashed windows, casting shadows across tables where I'd once served my creations. Sophie sat at our usual family table, wearing white like she was going to her own funeral. "You're late," she said. I placed the folder between us. "So are these mortgage payments." Her perfectly manicured fingers didn't quite reach for it. "You have no proof I forged anything, don't I?" I slid out a document. Dad's signature looks different here than on the original loan, almost like someone practiced it dozens of times. A muscle twitched in her jaw. "What do you want?" "The truth. For once." I leaned forward. "Why did you do it? Was ruining my career not enough?" "Your career?" She laughed, a brittle sound. "You think this was about your little cooking hobby? Then what? They mortgaged everything for you first." Her voice cracked. "Your culinary school, your internships, your equipment, There was nothing left for me. That's not. When I needed tuition, Dad had to take out loans. When I wanted to start my own business, they could barely afford groceries. Her eyes glittered, but precious Riley needed her dreams funded. The revelation hit like a physical blow. You never said anything. Would you have listened? You were too busy becoming the family's golden child, the one with real talent. Movement caught my eye. Kevin slipping through the kitchen door. Then Mason emerging from the shadows. Nina stepping out from behind a pillar. All according to plan. Sophie noticed too late. What is this? I stood, steady despite my racing heart. The truth, remember? Kevin, show her. He placed a USB drive on the table. The original inventory reports and other things. Sophie's face drained of color. You promised. He promised you, I corrected. Just like you promised him love. But it was all manipulation, wasn't it? Riley, Mason warned. But I couldn't stop now. The trust fund transfers, the forged signatures, the fake health inspections, it's all documented. One anonymous tip to the right authorities. Sophie shot to her feet. You wouldn't dare. It would destroy Mom and Dad. Like you destroyed my reputation, my business? That was different. I was protecting yourself, I finished. Always yourself. She lunged for the USB drive, but Kevin snatched it away. I'm sorry, he whispered. I can't keep lying for you. The look she gave him could have frozen hell. After everything I did for you? You mean to him? Nina stepped forward. There's a difference. Sophie's composure cracked completely. You think you've won? That exposing me will fix anything? She pulled out her phone. Mom and Dad are on their way. Let's see who they believe. My stomach dropped. This wasn't part of the plan. What? You're not the only one who can set a trap. Her smile turned vicious. I told them you were having another breakdown, that you'd threatened to expose family secrets unless they came. Headlights swept across the windows. Car doors slammed. Riley, Mason grabbed my arm. We need to go. But I stood frozen as Mom and Dad burst in, their faces masks of concern and disappointment. Sophie, honey, are you okay? Mom rushed to her, while Dad blocked my path to the door. What's the meaning of this? He demanded. Sophie's tears flowed perfectly on cue. She's trying to blackmail me, Daddy. Says she'll ruin us all unless... I looked at the folder in my hands, at the evidence that could destroy my sister's carefully constructed world, and realized she'd won again, because using it meant burning down what remained of our family. Riley? Dad's voice hardened. Explain yourself. The truth stuck in my throat like undercooked food. Everything I'd planned, every calculated move, had led to this moment. But looking at their faces, Mom's fear, Dad's anger, Sophie's hidden triumph, I realized the cost was too high. The folder slipped from my fingers, papers scattering across the floor. I'm sorry. I turned and ran, ignoring Mason's calls, Nina's protests, Kevin's guilty expression. Behind me, Sophie's voice rose in perfect victim pitch, spinning a story of her unstable sister's latest attack. Outside, rain had started to fall, washing away the last traces of my revenge, like spilled wine on a white tablecloth. I'd tried to beat Sophie at her own game, only to discover she'd been playing a different one all along, and I'd lost everything in the process. 3 days after I ran from Maison Rouge, Mom showed up at my apartment door, clutching her purse like a shield. Her eyes widened at the sight of boxes stacked behind me. You're leaving? Nina offered me a position at her new restaurant in Seattle. She stepped inside uninvited, scanning the half-packed kitchen. Sophie's in the hospital. The wooden spoon in my hand cracked. Another performance? She tried to... Mom's voice broke. The doctors say it was a cry for help. Everything she does is a cry for help. Riley, please, your father found the trust fund documents. I froze. What? They were scattered across Maison Rouge's floor. He's been up all night going through everything. She pulled out a familiar folder, my evidence against Sophie. He knows about the forgeries, the embezzlement, everything. My phone buzzed. Mason texting about flight details. I ignored it. Kevin confessed, too, Mom continued, about the restaurant sabotage, the false reports. Sophie's been... She searched for words. Unraveling. And you want me to what? Feel sorry for her? I want you to understand. She opened the folder, revealing documents I hadn't seen before. I've been keeping these for years. Every withdrawal from your culinary school fund, every loan payment. Sophie was right. We spent everything on your dreams first. The truth hit like scalding oil. So this was my fault? No, sweetheart. It was ours. She pulled out another paper, a check stub. We should have told you both the truth about the money, about our fears. Instead, we let Sophie believe she wasn't worth the same investment, and we let you believe you had to prove yourself worthy of it. My phone buzzed again. The Seattle job wouldn't wait forever. Where is she? Mom's relief was palpable. Memorial Hospital. Your father's there now. The hospital room was eerily quiet except for machine beeps. Sophie looked small in the bed, her perfect makeup gone, her armor stripped away. Dad sat beside her, holding her hand, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Come to finish what you started? Sophie's voice was raw. You did that yourself. Dad stood, but I waved him back down. It's okay. We need to talk. About what? How you won? She laughed bitterly. Congratulations. You destroyed everything. No. I moved closer. We destroyed everything. Both of us. Don't pretend we're the same. Aren't we? You forged signatures because you felt cheated. I built a food truck because I felt invisible. We both wanted to prove something. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Neither did I. But here we are. She turned away. Just go to Seattle. Leave us to clean up your mess. Our mess, I corrected. And I'm not going anywhere. That got her attention. What? I pulled out my phone, showing her the message I just sent Nina. I have to pass. Family emergency. You're making a mistake, Sophie whispered. Probably, but I'm done running from difficult recipes. Dad cleared his throat. Riley, the restaurant board called. With Kevin's confession and the evidence of Sophie's involvement, I don't want my job back. I met Sophie's startled gaze. I want to start fresh, build something new. Why? Because we're both better than this version of ourselves. I reached for her hand, feeling it tremble in mine, and because someone needs to show you there's more to life than being perfect. I don't know how, she admitted, voice barely audible. Neither do I, but I know how to create something from nothing, how to take raw ingredients and make them work together. I squeezed her hand. Maybe we start there. Mom appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She stopped, taking in the scene, her daughters holding hands, her husband wiping tears, the broken pieces of our family slowly shifting into a new configuration. The doctors want to discuss treatment options, she said softly. Sophie's hand tightened on mine. Will you stay? The question held more than just its surface meaning. Stay for the discussion. Stay in town. Stay and face the mess we'd made together. Yes, I said, pulling up a chair. I'll stay. Because sometimes the best recipes come from salvaging what's burned, from transforming bitter ingredients into something unexpectedly sweet. And sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about refusing to let them destroy themselves. The new restaurant's kitchen gleamed under fresh lights, everything in its place. I adjusted the frame holding my first review, not from a critic, but a simple social media post about my food truck's final day. The comments section overflowed with customers asking when Turner and Sister would open. "These portions are wrong," Sophie's voice carried from the prep station. "The recipe says—" "Sometimes you have to trust your instincts," I called back. "Not everything follows a perfect formula." She appeared in my office doorway, chef's whites still pristine despite hours of prep work. "The investors are arriving in an hour." "I know. And you're not worried?" I smiled, remembering similar conversations from months of therapy sessions and cooking lessons. About the food? Never. The dining room slowly filled with familiar faces. Nina sat with Mason, their heads bent over wine selections. Kevin had declined his invitation, but sent a letter Sophie kept in her apron pocket. Mom and Dad arrived last, holding hands like nervous teenagers. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the room. "Tonight's menu tells a story. Each dish represents a moment of transformation." Sophie stepped forward, her voice steady. "We begin with a dual amuse-bouche, one bitter, one sweet. Together, they create something unexpected." The evening flowed like perfectly timed courses. Between service, I caught glimpses of my sister actually smiling, explaining to guests how she'd adapted my recipes to include her own touches. Mom wiped tears when she tasted our grandmother's updated soup recipe. Dad actually put down his phone. During dessert, Nina pulled me aside. "Seattle's opening another location. Are you offering me a job again?" "No," she smiled. "I'm offering you a partnership, both of you." I watched Sophie carefully plating chocolate work, her focus absolute. "We're not ready." "You are, but that's not why I'm here." She handed me an envelope. "Your mother asked me to give you this. Said she's been adding to it since your first cooking class." Inside, I found years of receipts, notes, and photographs. Mom had documented everything: my culinary school applications, competition wins, even food truck permits. She'd been watching, supporting from the shadows, too afraid of disrupting the family's fragile balance to show it. "Riley," Sophie called out, "the final course." I tucked the envelope away. "Coming." We presented the last dish together, a deconstructed version of that fateful birthday dinner. But this time, the heat came from carefully balanced spices, not hidden sabotage. "It's perfect," Mom whispered, and for once, she was looking at both of us. Later, after the guests left and the kitchen was cleaned, Sophie and I sat at the bar, sharing the last slice of cake. "I found another one of your old recipe notebooks," she said quietly. "From before. Everything. And you wrote about teaching me to cook someday, about us working together." She pushed the plate away. "I ruined that dream for you." "No," I turned to face her. "You just took a different path to get there." "Why did you give me another chance?" "Because revenge wasn't making me a better chef or a better person." I stood, gathering our plates. "And because some ingredients need time to develop their full flavor." She followed me to the kitchen, where tomorrow's prep lists waited. "The critics will compare us, you know, try to pit us against each other again." "Let them." I handed her a pen. "We know the real recipe now." As we worked on the next day's menu, I thought about Nina's offer, Mom's secret support, the long road of healing ahead. Success wouldn't erase the past, but maybe it could help write a different future. "Riley?" Sophie's voice was hesitant. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something new. Not the perfect daughter or the manipulative antagonist, but someone as complex as the dishes we created together. Someone worth the time and effort to understand. "That's what family does," I said, and meant it. "Now, about those portions." She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. And somewhere between the prep lists and tomorrow's specials, I realized that the best revenge hadn't been destroying Sophie's world or even building my own. It had been finding a way to create something new together, something neither of us could have made alone.
The first warning sign should have been the empty coffee mug on my desk. Axel always brought me coffee on Wednesday mornings, a tradition we'd kept since our third date 2 years ago. But today, like the past 3 weeks, my desk sat bare. I'm Rosalind, and until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. A thriving career in corporate law, a handsome fiancé, and a sister who was my best friend since the day she was born. Funny how life has a way of shattering those perfect little illusions. Earth to Roz! Taya's voice cut through my thoughts as she perched herself on the edge of my desk. You're doing that thing again, where you stare at nothing and look like someone killed your cat. I forced a smile. Just thinking about Annika's birthday dinner tonight. Mom's going all out as usual. Taya's expression shifted, something flickering behind her eyes. Speaking of Annika, have you noticed anything different about her lately? Different how? I don't know. She lowered her voice, glancing around our open-plan office. She seems happier? Like, unusually happy for someone whose startup just tanked. I hadn't thought about that. Annika had been practically floating lately, despite losing her investors last month. When I'd offered to help, she'd brushed me off with a breezy, "Everything happens for a reason, Roz." My phone buzzed. A text from Axel. "Can't make it to dinner tonight. Emergency client meeting. Third time this month," I muttered, showing Taya the message. She frowned. "Roz, honey, when was the last time you and Axel actually spent time together?" "We had breakfast last." I paused, counting backward. "Sunday? No, that was 2 weeks ago." "And you're not worried?" "He's launching a new investment fund. It's a crucial time." Taya grabbed my hand. "Remember what your grandmother used to say? When something feels wrong in your gut, it usually is." Before I could respond, my phone lit up with Annika's face. "Hey sis, you're coming tonight, right?" "Wouldn't miss it. Want me to bring anything?" "Just yourself." Her voice was practically singing. "And don't worry about Axel. I already heard he can't make it." I sat up straighter. "How did you?" "Oh, he mentioned it at the coffee shop this morning. Total coincidence. Anyway, gotta run. Love you." The line went dead before I could respond. Taya raised an eyebrow. "Coincidence?" she said. "Since when does Axel get coffee from that overpriced place Annika loves? He's been loyal to that corner deli near his office for years." "Maybe he was in the area," I said, but something cold settled in my stomach. "Roz?" Taya's voice was gentle but firm. "You need to open your eyes. First, the coffee tradition stops. Then he starts canceling plans. Now he's randomly running into your sister at coffee shops. What exactly are you suggesting?" I'm suggesting you pay attention. Watch them tonight at dinner." "Oh, wait, he conveniently can't make it." I stood up, gathering my files. "You're reading too much into this. Annika would never. She's my sister. And Axel is your fiancé, but that doesn't seem to mean much to him lately, does it?" I wanted to argue, but memories started flooding in. Annika asking about my relationship schedule, always knowing when Axel would be busy. The way she'd insisted on helping plan our wedding, then suddenly stopped mentioning it. The furtive glances at her phone, the quick exits from family gatherings. "I need to get back to work," I said, my voice tight. Taya stood, squeezing my shoulder. "Just keep your eyes open tonight. And remember, you're stronger than you think." As she walked away, I pulled up my calendar. Annika's birthday dinner was at 7 p.m. at our mother's house. I had exactly 6 hours to decide whether I was being paranoid or if my perfect little world was about to implode. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Axel. "Miss you. Make it up to you this weekend?" I stared at the message, remembering how he used to write paragraphs, not sentences. How he'd surprise me with lunch dates and random flowers. When had that stopped? And more importantly, why hadn't I noticed until now? I typed back a simple okay and turned my phone face down on my desk. Tonight, I decided, I would watch. I would listen. And maybe, just maybe, I'd finally see what everyone else seemed to notice but me. The birthday dinner was a disaster before it even began. I arrived early to help Mom set up, only to find Annika already there, humming as she arranged flowers in the dining room. "You're early," I said, watching her adjust a rose. "Just excited." She spun around, her smile too bright. "Mom's letting me use her good china." Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Rosalind, perfect timing. Could you check if the wine's chilled?" Annika picked out Axel's favorite red, even though he can't make it. Wasn't that thoughtful? I froze. How did you know which wine Axel prefers? Oh, Annika's fingers fumbled with the flowers. "You must have mentioned it." I didn't. The doorbell saved her from responding. As Mom rushed to answer it, I pulled out my phone and did something I'd been avoiding all day. I opened Axel's location sharing. We'd set it up months ago for safety, but I'd never checked it before. The blue dot pulsed mockingly at me. He wasn't at any client meeting. He was at his apartment. "Ross?" Annika's voice was soft. "Everything okay?" I looked up to find her watching me, concern painted across her face. The same expression she'd worn when I'd told her Axel proposed. The same look she'd given me when I'd asked her to be my maid of honor. "Actually, no." I held up my phone. "Axel's at home." Her face paled slightly. "Maybe the meeting got canceled?" "Funny how you know so much about his schedule lately." "What's that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, Mom returned with Taya in tow. "Look who's early, too." Taya took one look at our faces and knew something was wrong. "I brought wine," she announced, breaking the tension. "And gossip. Lots of gossip." The evening progressed with forced smiles and careful conversations. I watched Annika check her phone every few minutes, always angling it away from me. At one point, she excused herself to take a call in the garden. "I'm going to get some air," I told Mom and Taya, following my sister out. The summer evening was warm, but I shivered as I approached the garden. Annika's voice carried clearly through the darkness. "You should have come." "No, she doesn't suspect anything." "Of course I feel bad, but listen, we need to tell her soon." "No, you don't understand. I can't keep doing this." My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and opened my messages with Axel. There, buried under months of loving texts, was a thread I'd never noticed before. Somehow, I'd archived it instead of deleting it. Unknown number. "Meeting you was the best mistake I've ever made." Axel. "We need to be careful. She trusts us both." Unknown number. "I hate lying to her, but I love you more." Axel. "Soon, baby. We'll tell her soon." The timestamps matched the weeks when our coffee tradition had ended, when Axel had started working late, when Annika had stopped talking about my wedding. "Roz?" Annika's voice cracked behind me. "What are you doing out here?" I turned slowly, phone still in hand. "Funny thing about iCloud," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Sometimes it syncs numbers you think you've hidden." She took a step back. "I can explain. Can you explain why my sister and my fiancé have been sneaking around behind my back? Can you explain why you're texting him right now, pretending he's at a meeting?" "It's not what you think." "Really?" I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet garden. "Because I think my sister is sleeping with my fiancé. I think they've been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. Please tell me how that's not what I think." Tears filled her eyes. "We didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. Things don't just happen, Anika. People make choices." "Roz, please." "Don't." I held up my hand. "Don't you dare ask me to understand. Don't you dare ask me to forgive you." I walked past her, back toward the house where Mom and Taya were probably wondering where we'd gone. At the door, I paused. "You know what the worst part is?" I said, not turning around. "I would have done anything for you. Both of you. I heard her sob, but I didn't look back. Inside, I grabbed my purse and keys. "Rosalind?" Mom called after me. "Where are you going? We haven't even had cake." "Ask your other daughter," I said. "I'm sure she'll be happy to explain everything." Taya followed me out to my car. "Want me to drive?" I shook my head. "I need to do something first." "Ross?" "I'm okay," I said, surprising myself by how steady my voice was. "I'm actually really okay. Because now I know exactly what I'm dealing with." I started the car, finally understanding what my grandmother meant about trusting your gut. Sometimes the truth hurts, but lies destroy everything they touch. 3 days after the birthday disaster, Mom called a family dinner. "To clear the air," she said, as if betrayal could be solved over pot roast and mashed potatoes. I almost didn't go, but Taya convinced me otherwise. "You need to show them you're not hiding," she said, as she helped me choose an outfit. "Wear that red dress, the one that makes you look like you could buy and sell their souls." Walking into Mom's dining room felt like entering a battlefield. Axel was already there, sitting next to Anika. They sprang apart when they saw me, guilt written across their faces. "Rosalind!" Mom rushed forward, arms outstretched. "I'm so glad you came." I stepped back. "Let's skip the pretense, Mom. Why are we here?" "Sit down, please." She gestured to the table. "We need to talk as a family." "Family?" I laughed. "Is that what we're calling this now?" Axel cleared his throat. "Roz, please. Don't call me that." I turned to face him fully. "You lost that right when you started sleeping with my sister." "Rosalind!" Mom gasped. "There's no need for vulgarity. No need for— Are you serious right now?" I stared at her. "Your younger daughter has been having an affair with my fiancé, and you're worried about my language?" Annika spoke up, her voice small. "We wanted to tell you properly." "When? After the wedding? Or were you planning to object dramatically at the ceremony?" "Actually," Axel stood up, reaching for Annika's hand, "we have something to announce." My stomach dropped as I watched him pull something from his pocket. A small, velvet box. The same one he'd used to propose to me 6 months ago. "We're engaged," Annika said, slipping my ring, onto her finger. The room spun. Mom clapped her hands together. "Isn't this wonderful? Now we can all move forward." "Move forward?" My voice sounded distant, even to my own ears. "You think this makes everything okay?" "Darling," Mom placed her hand on my arm. "These things happen. Sometimes people realize they're meant for someone else. The important thing is to handle it with grace." I shook her off. "Grace? Like sneaking around behind my back? Like lying to my face for months?" "We fell in love," Axel said, as if that explained everything. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did mean to steal my life, didn't you, Annika?" I turned to my sister. "My fiancé wasn't enough. You had to take my ring too?" She at least had the decency to look ashamed. "He had it reset." "Of course he did, because that makes it better." "Rosalind," Mom's voice took on that warning tone she used when we were kids. "They're trying to make this right. The least you can do is support their happiness." I looked around the table, at my mother's pleading expression, at Axel's defiant stance, at Annika's trembling hands playing with my ring. "Support their happiness," I repeated slowly. "Like you're all supporting mine?" "Don't be dramatic," Mom sighed. "You're young. You'll find someone else." "That's not the point." I slammed my hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "The point is trust, loyalty, family, or have you forgotten what those words mean?" "We're still family," Annika whispered. "Are we?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're just the person who betrayed me in the worst possible way." "Enough!" Mom stood up. "Rosalind, either you accept this and behave civilly, or— Or what, Mom? You'll choose her side? Too late. You already have." I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping as someone stood up. "Roz, wait!" Axel called out. I turned back one last time. You know what's funny? I actually feel sorry for you both. Because if you can do this to me, you can do it to each other, and you will. That's different, Annika protested. We're in love. So were we, I said, looking at Axel. Remember? The silence that followed was deafening. As I walked out, Mom's voice carried through the open door. Well, I think that went rather well, all things considered. I made it to my car before the tears came. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. Pure, clarifying rage. My phone buzzed with a text from Taya. How bad? I typed back. They're engaged. My ring. Mom's thrilled. Her response was immediate. I'm coming over, and I'm bringing tequila. Also, remember what you said about your grandmother's letter? I started the car, a plan forming in my mind. Yes. The letter. The one thing Anika didn't know about. The one card I hadn't played yet. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I was done playing nice. Sterling's law office hadn't changed in 20 years. Same leather chairs, same dusty law books, same smell of coffee and old paper. He looked up from his desk as I entered, his eyes crinkling with recognition. Rosalind, he stood to greet me. I was wondering when you'd come. You heard. Small town. He gestured to a chair. Your mother called me yesterday, actually. Wanted to know if I could start working on Annika and Axel's prenup. I sat down hard. Of course she did. I declined. He poured 2 cups of coffee. Professional conflict of interest, given my long relationship with your grandmother. That's why I'm here. I pulled out my phone, showing him the photo I'd taken years ago. Grandmother's letter, the one she made me promise not to open until I really needed it. Sterling nodded slowly. Ah, and you think now is the time? My sister is wearing my engagement ring and planning a wedding with my ex-fiancé. Yeah, I'd say it's time. He walked to a wall safe hidden behind a painting, entering a combination with practiced ease. The letter he withdrew was yellowed with age, my name written in my grandmother's elegant script. Before I give you this, he said, holding it just out of reach. Are you sure you're ready for what it might say? What do you know about it? Enough to know it will change things, permanently. I reached for the letter. Things are already changed. He handed it over, watching as I broke the seal. The paper inside was thick, expensive, typical of my grandmother. As I read, my hands began to shake. This can't be right, I whispered. It is. Sterling sat back down. Every word. The house, the investment portfolio, everything. Your grandmother was very specific. The entire inheritance goes to you, not to be shared with Annika under any circumstances. I looked up. Why? She saw something in Annika even then, a pattern of behavior. He sipped his coffee. The incident with your prom date? The scholarship she convinced you to turn down? Your grandmother noticed? But this is... I checked the numbers again. This is millions. Which explains Axel's sudden interest in family dinners, doesn't it? A knock at the door interrupted us. Taya poked her head in. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was... She stopped, seeing my face. What did I miss? I handed her the letter. Her eyes widened as she read. Holy shit, she breathed. Does Annika know? No one knows except Sterling, I said. Grandmother made sure of that. And now you, Sterling added. The question is, what are you going to do with this information? Taya sat down next to me. Please tell me you're thinking what I'm thinking. That depends. Are you thinking about how quickly Axel would drop Annika if he knew she wasn't getting any inheritance? Exactly that. Sterling leaned forward. Be careful. Revenge might feel good in the moment, but... This isn't about revenge, I interrupted. This is about truth, about consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Annika's planning an engagement party next weekend. Please be reasonable and attend. Taya read over my shoulder and snorted. Perfect timing. Indeed. I stood up. Sterling, I need copies of everything, and I need to know exactly what my rights are here. He nodded, already reaching for his files. The estate is yours to manage as you see fit. Your grandmother was very clear about that. Good. I turned to Taya. Feel like helping me plan a party? What kind of party? The kind where truth bombs get dropped and karma comes calling. Sterling cleared his throat. Rosalind, your grandmother trusted you with this for a reason. She believed in your judgment. And I won't let her down. I gathered the papers. But she also taught me that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their actions. As we left the office, Taya linked her arm through mine. You know they're going to hate you for this. They already betrayed me. Might as well give them a real reason. My phone buzzed again. Annika this time. Please come to the party. I need my big sister there. I showed Taya the message. She raised an eyebrow. You going to respond? Oh, I'll be there. I typed back a quick, wouldn't miss it, and pocketed my phone. And I'm bringing one hell of a wedding gift. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply letting the truth do its work. And thanks to my grandmother's foresight, I had all the truth I needed. I ran into Axel at the coffee shop the next morning. Not our old coffee shop, the pretentious one Annika loved. He was alone, staring at his phone with a furrowed brow. Trouble in paradise? I asked, making him jump. Rosalind. He straightened up. I didn't expect to see you here. Clearly. I ordered my coffee, ignoring how he shifted uncomfortably beside me. Something wrong? He hesitated. Actually, can we talk? Now you want to talk? But I followed him to a corner table anyway. I needed to know what game he was playing. It's about the engagement party, he said, fiddling with his cup. Annika's going a bit overboard. How so? She wants to rent out the Metropolitan. Full catering, live band, the works. I nearly choked on my coffee. The Metropolitan was the most expensive venue in town. And, he lowered his voice. She keeps talking about this inheritance she's expecting, making all these plans. What inheritance would that be? Your grandmother's? She said it's being split between you two. I let the silence stretch, watching him squirm. Finally, I said, interesting assumption. Before he could respond, someone called my name. I looked up to see Damien, a guy I knew from my gym, approaching our table. Rosalind, haven't seen you at kickboxing lately. Been busy. I gestured to the empty chair. Join us? Axel's face darkened as Damien sat down. I should go. Why? I smiled sweetly. We're just catching up. Damien, did you know Axel's engaged to my sister now? Damien's eyebrows shot up. Your sister? As in, the one you told me about at the gym? The one who… Yes, that sister. I turned back to Axel. You were saying something about inheritance? Axel stood abruptly. We can discuss this later. After he left, Damien whistled low. Well, that was uncomfortable. Sorry for dragging you into it. Are you kidding? This is better than my morning soap operas. He leaned forward. So what's this about inheritance? I found myself telling him everything. The letter, the betrayal, the upcoming party. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious. You're planning something, he said when I finished. Maybe. Need help? I studied him. Why would you want to help me? Because I've seen you at the gym, destroying that punching bag instead of dealing with this. He shrugged. And because I hate cheaters. My phone buzzed. Annika sending party details to the family group chat. The Metropolitan, Saturday night, black tie optional. Come celebrate our love story, the message read. Love story, I scoffed. More like betrayal biography. You know, Damien said thoughtfully, if you really want to make an impact, you need to let them dig their own grave first. What do you mean? Let them make it big. Let them invite everyone. Let them build up expectations. He grinned. The higher they climb, the harder they fall, I finished. I like how you think. I'm free Saturday, by the way. Are you asking to be my date to my sister's engagement party to my ex-fiancé? I'm offering to be your backup when you burn it all down. I found myself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in weeks. Deal! My phone buzzed again. Taya. Just got the invite. You sure about this? I typed back, more sure than ever. Looking up at Damien, I asked, how do you feel about helping me shop for a show-stopping dress? Only if you tell me the rest of your plan. Well, I pulled out the copy of grandmother's letter. It starts with this. As I outlined my ideas, Damien's grin grew wider. By the time we finished our coffee, we had a solid strategy, one that would let karma do most of the heavy lifting. You know, he said as we left the coffee shop, they're expecting you to either make a scene or not show up at all. Exactly, which is why I'm going to do neither. No dramatic confrontation? Oh, there will be drama. I checked my watch. But first, I need to make a few calls, starting with Sterling. The lawyer? If they want to talk inheritance, let's talk inheritance. I pulled out my phone. Time to set the stage for Saturday night. As I dialed Sterling's number, I caught my reflection in a store window. I looked different somehow. Stronger, clearer. Ready. You're kind of scary when you're plotting, Damien observed. Good, I said, as Sterling's office answered, because this is just the beginning. The Metropolitan buzzed with pre-party energy as staff rushed around setting up. I stood in the doorway, watching Anika direct people like a general commanding troops. The flower wall needs to be higher, she called out. And where's the champagne fountain? Champagne fountain? Taya whispered beside me. Someone's going all out. On credit, apparently. I adjusted my deep blue dress, the one Damien had helped me pick out. The venue alone must cost a fortune. Speaking of fortunes, Taya nodded toward Axel, who was having what looked like an intense phone conversation in the corner. He doesn't look happy. I moved closer, pretending to inspect the table settings. What do you mean, declined? Axel was saying. I've been with that bank for years. Yes, I understand, but no, I don't have another way to cover it. He hung up, running a hand through his hair. Annika bounced over to him. Baby, the band needs to know where to set up. And Mom's asking about the menu changes. Did you handle the deposit for the upgraded package? I watched his face carefully. Actually, sweetheart, about that. There you are! Mom's voice cut through the tension as she swept in. Rosalind, I didn't expect you so early. Just offering my support, I said sweetly. After all, what are sisters for? Annika's smile faltered slightly. Right. Thanks. The place looks amazing, I continued. Must be expensive. Oh, we're not worried about that. Annika waved her hand dismissively. Once everything's settled with grandmother's estate. What estate? Mom interrupted. What are you talking about? Axel stepped forward quickly. Maybe we should discuss this later. No, let's discuss it now. I perched on a nearby table. I'd love to hear about this estate you're counting on. Anika's face flushed. Well, grandmother always said she'd take care of us both equally. Did she? When exactly did she say that? I just assumed. You assumed you'd get half of everything? I pulled out my phone, checking the time. Interesting. Sterling should be here any minute. We can ask him about it. Sterling? Mom's eyes narrowed. Why would the family lawyer be coming to an engagement party? Because I invited him. I stood up as Sterling entered, right on schedule. Perfect timing. What's going on? Annika's voice had lost its confidence. Just clearing up some assumptions. I gestured for Sterling to join us. Sterling, my sister was just talking about grandmother's estate. Care to enlighten everyone? He pulled out a folder. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No need, I said. We're all family here, right? Axel moved closer, his eyes fixed on the folder. What is that? Your grandmother's final wishes, Sterling explained, which were quite specific. The entire estate, including this building actually, was left to Rosalind, exclusively. The silence that followed was delicious. That's impossible, Annika whispered. This building? Mom looked around. What do you mean, this building? The Metropolitan has been part of the family holdings for decades, Sterling explained, along with several other properties and investments. all under Rosalind's control now. Axel's face had gone pale. But you said your family owned— I never said anything, Annika cut in. You just assumed. Like you assumed you'd get half of grandmother's estate? I stood up. Funny how assumptions work. Mom stepped between us. There must be some mistake. Surely she meant for both girls. No mistake. Sterling handed her the documents. It's all quite clear. I watched as the implications sank in. Annika's elaborate party, the expensive venue, all the plans they'd made, all based on money that was never coming. So, I turned to Axel. About that deposit for the upgraded menu package? He couldn't meet my eyes. Annika looked between us, realization dawning. What's wrong with the deposit? The bank, he started. Declined his card, I finished. Awkward. Taya, who'd been quietly watching, finally spoke up. Should I tell the staff to stop setting up? Actually, I smiled. Let them continue. I'm paying for everything. You are? Annika's voice cracked. Of course. It's my building after all, and I wouldn't want to disappoint all your guests. I checked my phone again. They should be arriving in about an hour. Just enough time for you two to figure out what you're going to tell them. As I walked away, I heard Mom calling after me, but I didn't turn around. Let them stew in their own mess for a while. Damien was waiting by the bar. Phase 1 complete? Oh, yes. I watched Axel and Annika having what appeared to be their first real fight. And just in time for the main event. The Metropolitan filled with guests as the evening progressed. I watched from my position at the bar as Annika and Axel played the happy couple, their smiles growing more strained by the minute. Ready? Damien appeared beside me, looking sharp in his suit. Almost. I nodded toward the entrance where Sterling was letting in the last few guests, including several board members from Axel's investment firm. Just waiting for the full audience. Mom intercepted me as I moved toward the stage. Rosalind, please, whatever you're planning. What makes you think I'm planning anything? I know that look. It's the same one your grandmother used to get. Funny you should mention grandmother. I gestured to the microphone where Annika was preparing to make her speech. Let's hear what the happy couple has to say first. Annika tapped the microphone, her voice wavering slightly. Thank you all for coming tonight. I let her get through the usual platitudes. How she and Axel found love. How sometimes life surprises you. How family is everything. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew the truth. Then it was Axel's turn. When I first met Annika, through me, I called out, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. At our engagement party, wasn't it? A murmur went through the crowd. Axel's face reddened. Actually, I stood up, champagne glass in hand. I'd like to make a toast. Rosalind, Mom hissed, don't. To the happy couple, I moved toward the stage. To new beginnings, old rings, and hidden truths. Annika gripped the microphone stand. Ross, please. Oh, but I'm just getting started. I took the microphone. You see, everyone here knows the fairy tale version. But let me tell you the real story. This isn't the time. Axel stepped forward. No? When is the time? When you were sneaking around behind my back. When you gave her my engagement ring. Or maybe when you both assumed you'd be living off my inheritance. The room went dead silent. Oh, didn't everyone know? I turned to the crowd. My dear sister and ex-fiancé planned their whole future around money that was never theirs. Money that, as of last week, is legally and solely mine. One of Axel's board members stood up. What inheritance? The Metropolitan, for starters. I gestured around the room. This building, several others, plus a rather substantial investment portfolio. All of which Axel apparently thought came with my sister. That's not true! Annika grabbed for the microphone. We love each other! Really? I pulled out my phone. Should we read your texts from last month? The ones about how you couldn't wait to upgrade your lifestyle? Or Axel's messages about securing the family fortune? Axel's face went from red to white. How did you find them? Amazing what data recovery can do. I smiled at his board members. By the way, gentlemen, you might want to check the books at the firm. Someone's been making some interesting transfers lately. The whispers started immediately. Axel's boss stood up, phone already in hand. And Anika, I turned to my sister. Remember when you said everything happens for a reason? When your startup failed? She stepped back. Don't. Turns out the reason was embezzlement. Sterling has the proof, if anyone's interested. The room erupted in chaos. Axel's colleagues huddled together, phones out. Annika's former business partners, invited for show, started making calls. Mom sat down hard in a nearby chair. You've ruined everything, Annika sobbed. No, you did that all by yourself, both of you. I handed the microphone to Damien. Oh, and about the party, don't worry about the bill. Consider it my wedding gift, though I doubt there'll be a wedding now. As if on cue, 2 police officers entered with Sterling. Mr. Davidson, we'd like to ask you some questions about certain financial discrepancies. I watched as Axel was escorted out, his boss following with a thunderous expression. Annika stood alone on the stage, my old ring glinting mockingly on her finger. The ring, I said quietly. She pulled it off and threw it at me. I hate you. Funny, that's exactly how I felt when I found out about you two. I caught the ring and dropped it in my champagne glass. But unlike you, I did something productive with the feeling. The guests began filtering out, the party clearly over. Taya appeared at my side, grinning. That, she said, was better than any revenge movie I've ever seen. It wasn't revenge. I watched as Mom tried to console a crying Anika. It was justice. Damien touched my arm. Ready to go? I took one last look around the room. At the elaborate decorations, the shocked faces, the shattered remains of their perfectly planned deception. Nah, actually, I smiled. I think I'll stay. After all, it is my building. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's watching people face the consequences of their own actions. And from where I stood, karma had never looked better. The morning sun streamed through the Metropolitan's windows as I sat at the bar, sorting through paperwork. The place still smelled faintly of last night's party, champagne and shattered dreams. Coffee? Damien set a cup beside me. He'd shown up early, claiming he wanted to help clean up, but I suspected he just wanted to make sure I was okay. Thanks. I looked up as the door opened, revealing Mom. She looked tired, older somehow. I thought I'd find you here, she said, sliding onto a bar stool. Annika's gone. Gone where? She left a note, said she needs time to find herself. Mom's laugh was bitter, as if she's the victim in all this. And Axel? Released on bail this morning. His firm is pressing charges. She reached for my coffee, took a sip. You knew, didn't you? About the money laundering? Sterling found it when we were going through grandmother's papers. Axel had been using her old accounts to hide transactions. Why didn't you just turn him in? Because then everyone would have painted Annika as the innocent victim. Again. I sorted another stack of papers. They needed to face the consequences of their choices, together. The door opened again. Taya, carrying breakfast bags. I brought bagels and gossip. The firm's board met this morning. Axel's out. Good. I pulled out my grandmother's letter, smoothing its worn edges. You know what's funny? She wrote that she was leaving everything to me because I was the only one who never asked for it. Your grandmother was a wise woman, Mom said quietly. I should have listened to her about Annika. What do you mean? She tried to warn me years ago, said I was enabling Anika's worst instincts by always taking her side. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Rosalind. I failed you both. You didn't fail me. I reached for her hand. You just loved her too much to see her clearly. And now? Now you see everything. I pushed a folder toward her. Including this. She opened it, frowning. What is it? Grandmother's original business plan for the Metropolitan. She built this place from nothing, turned it into something special. I stood up, walking to the windows. I want to do the same. You're keeping it? I'm renovating it, making it mine. I turned back to face them. Damien's going to help with the design. He grinned. Those kickboxing sessions were getting boring anyway. Taya raised an eyebrow. Just the design? Before I could respond, Sterling arrived, looking unusually disheveled. You need to see this. He handed me his tablet, an email from Anika. My heart stopped as I read it. What is it? Mom asked. A confession. I passed her the tablet. She's admitting everything. The affair, the embezzlement, all of it. She sent copies to the police and Axel's firm. Why would she do that? Because, I read the last line again. She says it's time to write her own story instead of stealing someone else's. The room fell silent as the weight of it settled. Finally, Damien spoke up. So what now? I walked behind the bar, pulling out glasses. Now? Now we plan a renovation. This place needs to be more than just another venue. It needs to be somewhere people come to celebrate real love, not convenient lies. To new beginnings? Taya raised her glass. To truth, Mom added. To karma, Damien winked. I looked at my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. The woman staring back wasn't broken or bitter. She was strong, clear-eyed, ready. To grandmother, I said, who knew exactly what she was doing. As we clinked glasses, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Axel. I'm sorry for everything. I deleted it without responding. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. First order of business, I announced, pulling out the blueprints I'd been working on. The wall between the bar and the ballroom needs to go. We're opening this place up. No more hidden corners for secrets. As Damien leaned in to study the plans, his hand brushed mine. This time, I didn't pull away. You know, Taya said, watching us with a knowing smile, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, I finished, feeling lighter than I had in months. The morning sun caught the diamond ring still sitting in last night's champagne glass, making it sparkle. But I didn't need it anymore. I had something better. Truth, purpose, and the knowledge that sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of finding yourself. All right. I rolled out the blueprints fully. Let's build something real.
The worst part about being invisible is when people look right through you, even at your own mother's birthday party. Even when you're the one who spent 3 days preparing everything, from the hand-rolled spring rolls to the intricately decorated cake that nobody bothered to photograph. I'm Luna, and I've mastered the art of fading into the background at family gatherings. Tonight was no different, except it was the night that changed everything. Mum, did you see what Uncle Dwayne brought? My daughter Emma tugged at my sleeve, pointing at the massive wrapped gift in the corner. Of course, my brother had to outdo everyone else with what looked like a 65-inch TV. That's nice, sweetie, I said, adjusting the wilting flower arrangement that nobody had noticed I'd spent hours on. Luna, honey, could you grab more ice from the garage? My mother called from across the room, not even looking in my direction. She was too busy fawning over Dwayne, who was holding court in our living room, regaling everyone with his latest tech company acquisition. And that's how we closed the deal at $50 million, Dwayne's voice boomed. The future of tech is all about innovation and bold moves. I grabbed the ice bucket, my knuckles white against the plastic. As I passed through the living room, Sarah, our family friend, touched my arm. Luna, those spring rolls are amazing, just like your grandmother used to make. Before I could thank her, Dwayne cut in. Speaking of bold moves, where's that computer engineering degree of yours taking you these days, little sister? Still just playing house? The room fell quiet. Even the kids stopped their chatter. I'm raising my daughters, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Someone has to be there for the next generation of innovators. Dwayne laughed, that condescending chuckle that made me want to throw the ice bucket at his head. Right, because that's exactly what your degree was meant for, packing lunches and driving carpool. Dwayne, our sister Freya warned, but he was on a roll. I mean, let's be honest, Luna. You had potential once, but you chose to waste it. Not everyone's cut out for the tech world. Some people are meant to stay in the shallow end of the pool. My mother chuckled nervously. Oh, Dwayne, you're terrible. Luna, where's that ice? I stood there, ice bucket frozen in my hands, as my 10-year-old daughter looked up at me with confused eyes. In that moment, something snapped. You know what, Dwayne? I set the bucket down with a thud. You're right. Not everyone's cut out for the tech world. Some people need to buy their way to the top, acquiring other people's innovations because they can't create anything themselves. The room went dead silent. Dwayne's face darkened. Luna, my mother gasped. Apologize to your brother right now. I looked around the room. At my mother's horrified expression, at Sarah's sympathetic glance, at Freya's subtle nod of approval, and finally at my daughter's wide eyes. I'm sorry, I said, picking up the ice bucket again. I'm sorry I let you all think I was nothing more than a glorified housewife for so long. That's about to change. I walked out to the garage, my heart pounding. Through the door, I could hear Dwayne's dismissive laugh. See what I mean? Always so emotional. That's why she could never hack it in tech. In the dim garage, surrounded by boxes of Christmas decorations and outgrown baby clothes, I pulled out my phone. With trembling fingers, I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Ingrid Flores, my old college roommate and the most brilliant coder I'd ever known. Hey, Ingrid, it's Luna. Remember that app idea we talked about at the reunion last year? The one you said could revolutionize how people connect? I'm in. All in. There was a pause on the other end. Are you sure? Last time we talked, you said the timing wasn't right. I looked back at the door where I could still hear Dwayne holding court. The timing's perfect now. How soon can we meet? I can do tomorrow morning. Coffee at the grind. Perfect. I hung up and filled the ice bucket, a smile playing at my lips for the first time that evening. When I returned to the party, Dwayne was opening his gifts, making a show of each one. I set the ice down and watched as my mother opened the massive TV he'd brought, exclaiming over his generosity. But I barely saw it. In my mind, I was already coding, planning, building something that would make them all sit up and take notice, something that would force my brother to eat his words. My daughter tugged at my sleeve again. Mum, are you okay? I looked down at her, seeing in her eyes the same spark of curiosity and determination I used to see in my own reflection. I'm better than okay, sweetie. I'm about to show Uncle Dwayne exactly what the shallow end of the pool can do. The grind was already buzzing with morning coffee seekers when I spotted Ingrid at our usual corner table. She hadn't changed much since college. Same intense eyes, same habit of drumming her fingers when she was excited about an idea. You look like you're on a mission, she said as I sat down, 2 laptops already open in front of her. More like a warpath, I replied, pulling out my own notebook. Remember when we talked about creating an app that could predict and prevent technical failures before they happen? Ingrid's eyes lit up. The preventive maintenance AI. Luna. That could revolutionize how companies handle their infrastructure. But the algorithm would need to be perfect, I finished. I know, and I've been working on it, she raised an eyebrow. While raising 2 kids, I pulled out my tablet and showed her the preliminary coding I'd been tinkering with during late nights after the girls went to bed. Turns out insomnia and revenge are great motivators. Ingrid scrolled through my work, her eyes widening. This is actually brilliant. You've created a basic framework that could learn from historical failure patterns, but we'd need massive amounts of data to train it properly. I might have a solution for that, I said, taking a sip of my coffee. Remember Sarah from my brother's company? She heads their data department, and she's been dropping hints about their maintenance issues for years. The same brother who inspired this revenge coding session? The very same. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Family dinner tonight. Don't be late like last time. Ingrid saw my expression change. Let me guess. Family obligations. They still think I'm just playing house, I said, my voice tight. Even my mum. Yesterday, she told me I should be grateful Dwayne gives my daughters such nice birthday presents since I can't afford much on my own. Then let's prove them wrong, Ingrid turned her laptop around. Look at these market projections. Companies lose billions annually due to preventable technical failures. If we can create an AI that predicts these failures, we could save them millions, I finished, feeling the familiar excitement of a challenging project. But we'd need funding, infrastructure. Leave that to me, Ingrid said. I've got connections from my time at Silicon Valley, but Luna, are you sure you're ready for this? It's going to be intense. Before I could answer, my daughter Emma's face appeared in the coffee shop window, pressed against the glass. My other daughter Lily waved frantically beside her. Mom, we finished soccer practice early. They burst into the cafe, still in their uniforms. Girls, this is my friend Ingrid, I said as they bounded over. We used to code together in college. You code? Emma's eyes went wide. But Uncle Dwayne said, Uncle Dwayne doesn't know everything, I cut in, perhaps too sharply. Actually, Ingrid and I are working on something pretty exciting. What is it? Lily peered at the laptops. Ingrid smiled and turned her screen toward them. See these patterns? We're teaching computers to predict when other computers might break, so we can fix them before they do. Like when my tablet knew its battery was going to die, Emma asked. Exactly like that. But for big companies with thousands of computers, I said, watching their faces light up with understanding. That's so cool, Lily exclaimed. Can we help? I looked at their eager faces, then at Ingrid. Actually, yes. How would you girls like to be our first test users? We'll need people to try out the app once we build it. Will Uncle Dwayne use it too? Emma asked innocently. Ingrid caught my eye, a slight smirk playing on her lips. Oh, I have a feeling your Uncle Dwayne will definitely be interested in what your mum creates. After dropping the girls at home, I returned to find Ingrid had already drafted a basic project timeline. We can have a prototype in 3 months, she said. But Luna, you'll need to be all in. No holding back. I thought about Dwayne's smirk at yesterday's party, about my mother's dismissive attitudes, about my daughter's amazed faces when they saw what I could do. I'm all in, I said, pulling my laptop closer. But let's make it 2 months. I want to be ready before Dwayne's big merger announcement. Now that's the Luna I remember from our coding competitions, Ingrid grinned. The one who always found a way to shave time off her algorithms. We worked until the sun started setting, the coffee shop emptying around us. My phone buzzed again. Another reminder about family dinner. Go, Ingrid said, waving me off. Keep up appearances, I'll start setting up our development environment. As I gathered my things, she caught my arm. Luna, just remember, the best revenge isn't just success, it's success they never saw coming. I smiled, thinking of my brother's condescending laugh. Oh, they won't see this coming. Not until it's too late to stop it. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time since college, I felt truly alive. The code was flowing through my mind again, and this time, I wouldn't let anyone tell me to stay in the shallow end. Mom, your laptop is making weird noises again, Emma called from the kitchen table, where she was supposedly doing her homework. That's because it's running complex calculations, I explained, not looking up from my screen. The prototype was coming along faster than expected, but we still had bugs to fix. My phone buzzed. Freya, where are you? Mom's having a fit that you missed Sunday brunch. Again? I glanced at the clock. 2:30 p.m. Damn. Girls, pack up your stuff. We need to visit Grandma. 20 minutes later, we pulled into my mother's driveway. Dwayne's Tesla was still there, of course. He never missed a family gathering. There's my favourite nieces. Dwayne's voice boomed as we entered. He was sprawled on the couch, watching golf. Your mum finally remembered we exist, huh? We were busy, Emma said proudly. Mum's teaching us about artificial intelligence. The room went quiet. My mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Luna, really? Filling their heads with complicated nonsense when they should be focusing on school? It's not nonsense, Lily protested. Mom's building something amazing. Dwayne laughed. Is she now? What's amazing about it, kiddo? Before I could stop her, Lily launched into an explanation. It's an app that can predict when computers are going to break. Mom says it could save companies millions of... Lily, I cut in sharply. But the damage was done. Dwayne sat up, his amusement fading. Is that so? And where exactly are you getting the data to train this magical AI? That's none of your business, I said, steering the girls toward the kitchen. Mom, do you have any leftovers from brunch? But Dwayne wasn't letting it go. He followed us, his golf game forgotten. Actually, it is my business, especially if you're planning to use any proprietary information. Not everything revolves around your company, Dwayne. Freya appeared in the doorway, sensing the tension. Hey, girls, want to help me check on the garden? After they left, Dwayne lowered his voice. Listen, Luna, playing around with code might be a fun hobby, but don't go getting serious ideas. The tech world isn't for amateurs. Funny, I said, meeting his eyes. That's exactly what your competitors said about you before you bought them out. His face darkened. Watch it, sister. You're out of your depth. My phone buzzed again. Ingrid. Major breakthrough. The prediction accuracy is at 94%. Call me ASAP. Luna, my mother interrupted. Speaking of depth, why don't you help Dwayne with his company's anniversary gala next month? You always had such a knack for planning parties. I gripped my phone tighter. Sorry, Mom, I'm a bit busy these days. Too busy for family? She shook her head. Ever since you started this computer thing, you're never around. What kind of example are you setting for your girls? A pretty good one, actually, Freya said, returning without the kids. She's showing them that mothers can be more than just party planners. Stay out of this, Freya, Dwayne warned. Or what? Freya challenged. You'll mansplain technology to me, too. My phone buzzed continuously now. Ingrid was calling. I need to take this, I said, stepping onto the back porch. Behind me, I could hear Dwayne and my mother's disapproving sighs. Luna! Ingrid's voice was electric with excitement. The algorithm just predicted a major server failure in our test environment 30 minutes before it happened. We're ready for real-world testing. I glanced through the window at Dwayne, who was now lecturing Freya about family loyalty. How soon can we launch? 2 weeks, maybe less, but Luna! We got another email from that venture capitalist. He wants to meet. My heart raced. The one who backed that billion-dollar startup last year? The same. He's heard rumors about what we're building. Says it could be exactly what the industry needs. Through the glass, I saw my daughters return from the garden, their faces lighting up when they saw me. Behind them, Dwayne was checking his phone, his expression growing increasingly concerned. Set up the meeting, I said. And Ingrid, let's accelerate the timeline. I want to launch before Dwayne's merger announcement. That's in 3 weeks, she cautioned. We'd be cutting it close. Trust me, I said, watching my brother's frown deepen as he read something on his phone. The timing needs to be perfect. I hung up just as Sarah, our family friend, rushed onto the back porch. Luna, I've been trying to reach you, the predictive maintenance system at Dwayne's company. It's showing signs of imminent failure. Their current software can't identify the cause. I smiled, thinking of our algorithm's 94% accuracy rate. How unfortunate for them. Sarah's eyes widened with understanding. Your app? It could prevent this, couldn't it? It could, I agreed, but something tells me my brother isn't ready to admit he needs his little sister's help. Inside, I could hear Dwayne barking orders into his phone. For once, I was glad to be invisible. It meant no one noticed my satisfied smile as I watched chaos unfold in the shallow end of the pool. The venture capitalist's office screamed success, all glass and chrome with a view of the bay. Marcus, the man himself, leaned back in his chair, staring at our demo with an intensity that made my palms sweat. Run it again, he said. Ingrid nodded, restarting the simulation. On the massive screen, our AI predicted 3 system failures in a complex network, highlighting them in red before they occurred. Impressive, Marcus said, standing up. But I need to know, how did you get such accurate predictions with limited data? Before I could answer, my phone lit up. Emma's school. I declined the call, but it immediately rang again. Take it, Ingrid said. I'll explain the technical details. I stepped out into the hallway. Hello? Mrs. Kelly? Emma had a panic attack during her presentation. She's asking for you. My heart sank. I'll be right there. Back in the conference room, Marcus was nodding enthusiastically at Ingrid's explanation. The pattern recognition is revolutionary. With proper backing, this could... I have to go, I cut in. Family emergency. His expression shifted. Mrs. Kelly, while I appreciate family commitments, this level of investment requires... My daughter needs me, I said firmly. Ingrid can handle the technical questions. I'll be back in an hour. I caught Ingrid's supportive nod as I rushed out, but Marcus's frown followed me to the elevator. At school, I found Emma curled up in the nurse's office, her science project poster crumpled beside her. Baby, what happened? She looked up, tears streaking her face. I was telling the class about your app, about how it helps computers. But Tyler said I was lying. He said his dad works for Uncle Dwayne and that you're just a mom who plays with computers. My chest tightened. Tyler's dad works for your uncle? He's Mr. Percy from the Christmas party, she sniffled. He said you're trying to hurt Uncle Dwayne's company. Percy. Of course. Dwayne's right-hand man would be feeding his kid propaganda. Emma, look at me, I said, wiping her tears. What we're building isn't about hurting anyone. It's about proving that everyone deserves a chance to create something important. Even mums who play with computers. My phone buzzed. Ingrid. Marcus is interested. Very interested. Where are you? Then another text from Freya. Emergency family dinner tonight. Dwayne's making some big announcement. Mom says attendance non-negotiable. Can we go home? Emma asked. I don't want to see Tyler again today. I looked at my daughter's tear-stained face, then at the messages on my phone. How about we make a deal? We'll go home, get cleaned up, and then show everyone exactly what your mom can do. Back at the venture capitalist's office, Emma sat quietly in the corner with her tablet while I finished the presentation. Marcus was still there, along with 2 other investors. The market potential is clear, Marcus said, but your brother's company is announcing a competing product next week. I felt Emma tense behind me. No, they're not, I said confidently. They're announcing a merger. One that depends on their current systems working perfectly for the next month. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And you know this how? Because I know my brother. And I know his systems better than he thinks I do. Mom, Emma called out. Uncle Dwayne's company is trending on Twitter. We all turned to look at her tablet. The headlines were brutal. Major system failure at tech giant. Customers report widespread outages. My phone exploded with notifications. Freya, you need to get to Mom's now. Dwayne is losing it. If you'll excuse me, I said to Marcus. I believe my family needs me. He stood up, extending his hand. We'll have the paperwork ready tomorrow. 5 million in initial funding. Emma's eyes went wide. Mom, that's... Just the beginning, I finished, shaking Marcus's hand. The drive to my mother's house was tense. Emma kept refreshing Twitter, reading out updates about Dwayne's company's meltdown. We walked into chaos. Dwayne was pacing the living room, shouting into his phone. Percy was there too, looking pale. This is sabotage, Dwayne was saying. Find out who's responsible. My mother rushed to hug Emma. Luna, where have you been? Your brother needs family support right now. Actually, I said, loud enough to cut through the noise, what he needs is a better predictive maintenance system. The room fell silent. Percy's eyes narrowed. Like the one you've been developing? Exactly like that, I replied, pulling out my tablet. The same one that predicted this failure 3 days ago. Dwayne's face went from red to purple. You knew? You knew this would happen and you didn't say anything? Like you said, brother, some people need to stay in the shallow end of the pool. I met his gaze. But sometimes, the shallow end is where you find the cracks in the foundation. Emma stepped forward, her voice small but clear. Mom's app could fix everything, Uncle Dwayne, if you'd just listen to her. The room held its breath as Dwayne looked from his niece to me, his company crumbling around him, his perfect image shattering like the systems he'd failed to protect. How much? He finally asked. I smiled, thinking of Marcus's offer. Oh, brother, we're way past that now. Tech's newest rising star, the The stay-at-home mom taking Silicon Valley by storm. The headline glared from my laptop screen as Ingrid paced our new office, fielding calls from reporters. "No, she's not available for comment right now," she said for the 100th time. "Yes, we'll be at the tech conference next week. No, we're not discussing the rumors about TechVance's system failures." I closed the laptop, my head spinning. In just 3 days, our app had gone from secret project to viral sensation. Marcus's investment had made headlines, and our waiting list for beta testing was growing by the hour. "Mom!" Lily burst into the office, waving her phone. "You're trending on TikTok! Some girl made a video about you showing up her dad who said women can't code." "Wonderful," I muttered, just as my mother's number flashed on my screen. I let it go to voicemail. "Luna," Ingrid said, covering her phone's microphone. "Percy's here. He's demanding to see you. Send him in." I straightened my jacket, grateful I'd chosen to wear my power suit today. Percy stormed in, his usual polished appearance slightly frayed. "This has gone far enough, Luna. You need to stop this media circus before it destroys your brother's company." "Funny," I said, keeping my voice level. "I don't remember Dwayne worrying about destroying other companies when he was buying them out. This is different. This is family." "Yes, it is." I stood up, and family should have recognized my potential instead of dismissing it. "Mom," Lily tugged at my sleeve, "Uncle Dwayne's on TV again." We all turned to the mounted screen where Dwayne was giving an emergency press conference. He looked tired, his usual confidence cracking around the edges. While we acknowledge the recent technical difficulties, TechVance remains committed to providing the highest quality service to our clients. "He's drowning," Percy said quietly. "Your little revenge project is working. Happy now?" Before I could respond, Sarah burst into the office. "Luna, you need to see this. Someone leaked internal emails from TechVance. They knew about the system vulnerabilities months ago but covered them up." My blood ran cold. "What?" "It's all over Twitter. The timestamps, the warning signs, everything." Sarah pulled up the feeds on her tablet. They ignored multiple red flags because fixing the issues would have delayed the merger. Percy's face went ash white. "Those emails were confidential. They were negligent," I corrected. "And now everyone knows it." My phone buzzed again. "Freya, turn on Channel 7 now." The news anchor's voice filled the room. Breaking news about TechVance's corporate practices. Sources claim the company's leadership, including CEO Dwayne Kelly, deliberately ignored warnings about system vulnerabilities. In related news, former employee Luna Kelly's new predictive maintenance app has been hailed as a potential solution to prevent such catastrophic failures. "Mum," Lily whispered. "You're famous." Percy stepped closer, his voice low. "Call off the dogs, Luna. Work with us. We can make this beneficial for everyone. Like Dwayne made things beneficial for me." I gestured to the screen where his press conference was imploding. "By treating me like a hobby coder playing house?" "You've made your point," he pleaded. "But this isn't just about Dwayne anymore. Thousands of jobs are at stake." My phone lit up with another call, this time from Marcus. "The tech conference wants you to give the keynote speech," he said when I answered. "They're bumping Dwayne from the slot." I looked at Percy's desperate face, at my daughter's proud expression, at Ingrid's questioning glance. "Tell them I'll do it," I said to Marcus. "But I have one condition." After hanging up, I turned to Percy. "Tell my brother I want a meeting, tonight, just the two of us. And if he refuses, then I'll tell my story at the keynote. All of it, including how TechVance's CEO treated his own sister's technological innovations." Percy left quickly, already dialing Dwayne's number. Ingrid waited until the door closed before speaking. "Are you sure about this? We have them on the ropes. We could..." "Could what?" I interrupted. "Destroy my brother's company? Watch him crash and burn?" I looked at Lily, still clutching her phone with its viral videos. "What kind of example would that set?" "The kind that shows consequences," Ingrid argued. "No," I said, watching another news segment about TechVance's failures. "The kind that perpetuates a cycle of revenge. There has to be a better way." My phone buzzed one final time. Dwayne. "Fine. Meeting at 8. The old diner where Dad used to take us." I smiled, remembering the countless Sunday mornings we'd spent there as kids, dreaming about changing the world through technology, before competition and pride got in the way, before the shallow end became a weapon instead of a starting point. "Mum?" Lily's voice pulled me back. "Are you going to help Uncle Dwayne?" I hugged her close, watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens. "No, sweetie, I'm going to help himself. Sometimes that's the best revenge of all." The neon sign of Joe's Diner flickered in the evening darkness, just like it had 20 years ago. Dwayne was already there, occupying our old booth by the window, looking smaller somehow without his usual corporate armor. "You're late," he said as I slid into the seat across from him. "Actually, I'm right on time." I picked up the menu, though we both knew it hadn't changed in decades. "Still getting the blueberry pancakes?" "Cut the small talk, Luna." He pushed a stack of papers across the table. "Here's our offer. Full acquisition of your app, plus a senior position at Tech Vance." I didn't even glance at the papers. No. It's a generous offer. More than generous, considering... Considering what? I set down the menu. Considering I'm just playing house? Or considering your company is hemorrhaging clients while mine is trending on social media? The waitress appeared, coffee pot in hand. "Well, if it isn't the Kelly kids, your usual orders." "Yes," we said simultaneously, then glared at each other. After she left, Dwayne leaned forward. "What do you want, Luna? Revenge? Public humiliation? Because you're getting both." "I want what I've always wanted: recognition, respect, a seat at the table that isn't in the kids' section." "You walked away from the table," he snapped. "You chose to be a mother instead of..." "Instead of what? A real professional? Newsflash, Dwayne. I never stopped being an engineer. I just added mom to my skill set." The waitress returned with our orders. Blueberry pancakes for him, chocolate chip for me. Just like when we were kids and Dad would bring us here after his night shifts. "Remember what Dad used to say?" I asked, cutting into my pancakes. "About how technology should bring people together, not drive them apart." Dwayne's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Don't bring him into this." "Why not? He's the reason we both went into tech. The difference is, I stayed true to his vision while you got lost in corporate politics." "I built an empire." "You built a house of cards," I corrected. "And now it's falling because you forgot the most basic principle of engineering. Always check your foundation." His phone buzzed. More bad news, judging by his expression. "The merger's falling apart," he admitted. "Our stock is in free fall." "I know." I pulled out my tablet and pulled up our app's interface. "But it doesn't have to be." "What do you mean?" I turned the screen toward him. "This is a live simulation of your network. See these red spots? Their potential failure points are AI identified. And these green paths? They're solution roadmaps." Dwayne studied the screen, his engineer's mind engaging despite himself. "The prediction accuracy is remarkable." It should be. I used all those late-night coding sessions with Dad as inspiration. Remember how he taught us to think of networks as living organisms? "With interconnected systems that need to work in harmony," he finished, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. He would have loved this. "He would have loved seeing us work together on it." Dwayne looked up sharply. "Together?" I nodded. "I don't want to destroy Tech Vance, Dwayne. I want to transform it, not as your employee, but as your partner." "A partnership?" He laughed, but it wasn't his usual condescending chuckle. "The board would never approve. The board doesn't have a choice. Your company needs my technology, and my company needs your infrastructure. But more importantly..." I reached across the table and tapped his phone, where another crisis notification was flashing. "Your little sister needs to know her big brother still believes in her." The waitress appeared with fresh coffee. "You two remind me so much of your father right now," she said, filling our cups. "He always said his kids would change the world someday." After she left, Dwayne was quiet for a long moment. "You really think we could work together? After everything?" "I think we have to try. For Dad. For my daughters. For all the other little girls who are told to stay in the shallow end." He picked up the acquisition papers and slowly tore them in half. Freya's going to love this. She always said we were stronger together than apart. Speaking of Freya, I checked my phone. She's been texting me updates about Mum's reaction to all this. Apparently, she's finally telling everyone about her own secret coding project. Dwayne nearly choked on his coffee. Mom codes? Where do you think we got it from? Dad may have inspired us, but Mum was the one debugging his programs late at night. For the first time in years, my brother's genuine laugh filled the diner. We really don't know everything about our family, do we? No, I smiled, pulling up a new contract on my tablet, one for a true partnership. But maybe it's time we learned. As we sat there hammering out details over cooling pancakes, I realized this was better than revenge. This was redemption, for both of us. The boardroom was packed. Every executive from TechVance sat on one side, their faces a mix of skepticism and barely concealed hostility. On my side sat Ingrid, Marcus, and our legal team. Dwayne stood at the head of the table, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. The terms are simple, he began. A full merger between TechVance and Luna's company, with shared leadership and— This is absurd, Percy interrupted, standing up. We're talking about giving half our company to a startup that's barely 6 months old? A startup that predicted and could have prevented our recent catastrophic failures, Dwayne countered. Which they suspiciously knew about in advance, Percy shot back, glaring at me. I stood up slowly. Would you like to see exactly how we knew? I brought receipts. Opening my laptop, I projected our data onto the wall screen. These are your system logs from the past year. Every warning sign, every red flag, every potential failure point that you ignored. Our AI didn't just predict the failures, it mapped your entire history of negligence. The room erupted in murmurs. Percy's face turned red. Those logs are confidential. This is corporate espionage. Actually, Sarah spoke up from the back of the room, as head of data management, I authorized Luna's access months ago. It's all documented. Percy whirled on her. You betrayed us? No, Sarah said firmly. I protected us. Someone had to. Enough! Dwayne's voice cut through the chaos. The merger isn't up for debate. The only question is whether you're all smart enough to be part of it. Just then, the door burst open. My mother walked in, followed by Freya. Mom? Dwayne and I said simultaneously. What are you doing here? She straightened her jacket, not her usual floral dress, but a sharp business suit. I'm here to vote my shares. Or did you both forget that your father left me 30% of TechVance? The room went silent. Percy sank back into his chair. Mom, Dwayne started, you've never shown interest in company decisions before. Because you never asked, she said, taking a seat at the table. Too busy assuming I was just the little woman who packed your lunches and planned your parties. She turned to me, her eyes twinkling. Sound familiar, dear? I couldn't help but laugh. Like mother, like daughter? Exactly. She pulled out her own laptop. Now, about those system vulnerabilities. I've been running some diagnostics of my own. You what? Percy sputtered. Oh, yes, Freya grinned. Who do you think taught us to code in the first place? Dad may have been the face of the family's tech adventures, but Mom was the real genius behind the scenes. My mother projected her own analysis, which perfectly matched our AI's predictions. The merger isn't just a good idea, it's essential for survival. Luna's innovation combined with TechVance's infrastructure could revolutionize the industry. And if we refuse? Percy challenged. Then I'll vote my shares in favor of new management, she said simply. Starting with you, Percy. The room erupted again, but this time with different energy. Board members who had been glaring at me were now nodding thoughtfully, looking between their screens and my mother's presentation. I move to vote, Sarah called out. Seconded, came another voice. As the votes were tallied, I felt Ingrid squeeze my hand under the table. We did it, she whispered. The final count was overwhelming. 89% in favor of the merger. Percy stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Well, Dwayne said, looking slightly shell-shocked, I guess we're really doing this. Yes, we are, I agreed, standing up to shake his hand. Partners. Partners, he echoed, then pulled me into an unexpected hug. I'm sorry, Luna, for everything. Save it for the press conference, I whispered back. We've got a better story to tell now. As the room cleared out, my mother stayed behind, still typing on her laptop. The system integration should be relatively straightforward, she said casually. I've already drafted a framework. Mom, I said, sitting beside her. Why didn't you ever tell us? She smiled, closing her laptop. Sometimes the best way to support others is to let them find their own path. I knew you'd figure it out eventually, both of you. But all those years watching Dwayne and me fight taught you both valuable lessons. Him about humility, you about persistence. She stood up, straightening her suit. Now, who's hungry? I hear Joe's Diner has excellent pancakes. Dwayne laughed from the doorway. Some things never change. No, my mother said, looking between us with pride, but some things change for the better. As we left the boardroom, now a family again but stronger and wiser, I checked my phone. Emma had texted, "Did you win, Mom?" I smiled, typing back, "We all did, baby. We all did." The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something far more powerful. Understanding. As we headed to the diner, I realized the shallow end of the pool had never been the problem. The problem was letting others define its depth. And now, to present our keynote on the future of predictive technology, please welcome Luna and Dwayne. I cut the announcer off, stepping onto the stage. Just Luna, please. I've earned the right to stand on my own. The conference hall erupted in applause. In the front row, Emma and Lily beamed, while my mother wiped away tears. Dwayne sat next to them, giving me a subtle thumbs up. Everyone loves a story about revenge, I began, pacing the stage, the underdog rising up, the mighty falling. But today I want to talk about something more powerful than revenge, recognition. The screen behind me lit up with our app's interface, now integrated seamlessly with TechVance's systems. This technology wasn't born from corporate competition or market analysis. It was born at my kitchen table, between helping with homework and making dinner. I clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of my daughters testing the beta version. Innovation doesn't care where you work. It doesn't care if you're in a corner office or a home office. It only cares if you're brave enough to challenge the status quo. Movement at the back of the hall caught my eye. Percy slipped in, looking uncomfortable but determined. He'd called earlier, asking to rejoin the company in a reduced role. His humility had surprised me. When we launched our merger last week, people called it a corporate fairy tale. David and Goliath joining forces. I smiled at Dwayne. But they missed the point. This isn't about little versus big or home versus office. It's about recognizing that innovation can come from anywhere. The next slide showed my mother's original coding projects from the 1980s. Sometimes the most powerful code runs silently in the background, unrecognized, but essential. Like the women who taught themselves programming while their children slept, or the mothers who debug systems between soccer practices. In the audience, Sarah nodded, thinking of all the times she'd protected the company from itself. Beside her, Freya gave me a proud smile. Our merged company isn't just combining technologies, I continued. We're combining perspectives, the view from the corner office and the view from the kitchen table, because sometimes you need both to see the complete picture. I clicked to my final slide, a simple photo of our family at Joe's Diner, taken just yesterday. The shallow end of the pool isn't a limitation. It's a foundation, and I'm grateful to everyone who tried to keep me there, because it taught me how to build something deeper. The applause was deafening, but I wasn't finished. Which brings me to our latest announcement. TechVance Luna is launching a scholarship program for parent programmers, because no one should have to choose between raising a family and raising the bar in tech. Emma jumped up, cheering. Lily whistled with her fingers, a trick Ingrid had taught her. Even Percy was clapping. After the presentation, we gathered in the green room. Dwayne approached with 2 coffee cups, blueberry pancake flavoured, our dad's favourite. Not bad for a hobby coder, he said, handing me a cup. Not bad for a corporate sellout, I replied, grinning. Our mother joined us, still in her business suit. Your father would be so proud. Not of the success, though that's nice too, but of how you both finally learned to see each other clearly. Speaking of seeing clearly, Ingrid called from the doorway, the new system just predicted another potential failure in the Asian markets, but this time we caught it early. On it, Dwayne and I said simultaneously, then laughed. I'll handle it, he said. You've got two very excited daughters waiting to celebrate with their tech superhero mom. They're waiting for both of us, I corrected. Their uncle the CEO and their mom the innovator. The whole family's going to Joe's diner. The whole family, my mother repeated softly, taking both our hands. Finally. As we walked out together, reporters clamoured for attention. Luna, how does it feel to go from stay-at-home mum to tech pioneer? I stopped, looking at my daughter's proud faces. I didn't go from one to the other. I've always been both. The world just wasn't ready to see it until now. Emma tugged at my sleeve. Mom, Tyler from school wants to know if he can join your coding camp this summer, the one for kids whose parents work in tech. Of course he can, I said, catching Percy's grateful look from across the room. Everyone's welcome in the shallow end. That's where all the best ideas start. Later at the diner, surrounded by family, friends, and endless plates of pancakes, I watched Dwayne teaching Lily about system architecture while my mother debugged code with Ingrid. Emma sat between them, soaking it all in, her future unlimited by anyone's expectations. More coffee, boss? The waitress asked with a wink. Just Luna, I corrected her, smiling. I'm not anyone's boss. I'm just a mum who codes. And that, Freya said, raising her coffee cup, is exactly what makes you a boss. We clinked our cups together, celebrating not the revenge I'd sought, but the recognition I'd found, not just from others, but from myself. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in proving yourself right.
The message glowed on my phone screen like a poisoned arrow. Your sister emptied the business account. Every penny. Check the transfers from last Tuesday. I stared at those words until they burned into my retinas. My champagne glass forgotten on the restaurant table. Around me, the birthday celebration continued. My mother's tinkling laugh, my father's warm chatter, Liam's hand on my knee under the table, and there sat Mia, radiant in her designer dress, performing her usual role of beloved baby sister. Everything okay, sweetie? Liam whispered, squeezing my leg gently. I forced a smile. Just work stuff. But my hands were shaking as I pulled up the banking app. 3 clicks later, my world imploded. The business account balance, 0. The transfer history showed it all. Systematic withdrawals over months, culminating in one final sweep, all traced to Mia's personal accounts. More wine, Jade? Mia's voice cut through my thoughts. She held the bottle with that practiced grace she'd perfected over years of getting exactly what she wanted. You seem tense. It's your birthday. You should relax. I met her eyes across the table, searching for any hint of guilt or shame. There was none. Just that same sparkle of innocence she'd weaponized since childhood. I'm good, I managed, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Actually, I'd love to hear about that investment opportunity you mentioned last week, the one you were so excited about. Mia launched into another perfectly crafted story about some exclusive real estate deal, while our parents hung on every word. Ryan, her husband, stared at his plate, pushing food around with his fork. He knew. He had to know. My phone buzzed again. Check the second account, too, and the trust fund. Each notification felt like another nail in my coffin of denial. I'd spent years making excuses for Mia's behavior, smoothing things over, keeping the peace. Now the evidence was undeniable. She'd been systematically bleeding our family dry while we celebrated her successes. Remember when we were kids, Mia was saying, and Jade would always give me her dessert? Such a protective big sister. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. You've always taken care of me. I withdrew my hand slowly, feeling the weight of every lie, every manipulation, every moment I'd chosen family harmony over confrontation. Yes, I said quietly. I suppose I have. Mom beamed at us both, her face lined with years of worry, but brightening at this display of sisterly affection. Dad raised his glass. "To my girls," he said proudly, "the best daughters a father could ask for." The irony burned worse than the champagne. Later, as we gathered our coats, Mia cornered me by the restrooms. "Great party, sis, though you seemed distracted. Everything okay at work?" I studied her face, this stranger wearing my sister's features. "Just thinking about the future," I replied. "How quickly things can change. Change is good." She hugged me tight, her expensive perfume suffocating. "Speaking of which, I might need your signature on some papers next week. Just routine stuff for the business." My smile felt like broken glass. "Of course, whatever you need." Outside, Liam waited with my coat. As he helped me into it, he whispered, "You're trembling. What's wrong?" I watched Mia climb into her luxury car, our parents waving goodbye with proud smiles. My phone weighed heavy in my pocket, filled with proof of betrayal. "Nothing," I said. "Just realized I've been playing the wrong game all these years." I turned to him, decision crystallizing like ice in my veins. "But that changes tonight." "Jade, I'll explain everything later. Right now, I need you to help me make some calls. It's time to show my dear sister what happens when the protective big sister stops protecting." 3 days after my birthday dinner, I sat across from my mother at her kitchen table, watching her hands tremble as she lifted her teacup. The morning light caught the new worry lines around her eyes, making her look older than her 55 years. "Your father's blood pressure is getting worse," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The doctor wants him to reduce his workload, but with the new expansion plans Mia's pushing." I gripped my own cup tighter. "What expansion plans?" "Oh, she didn't tell you. She's already signed the lease on that new location downtown. Such a prime spot, she says. Though I don't know how we're affording it." Mom's laugh was brittle. "But you know your sister. She has such a vision for things." The familiar acid of rage burned in my stomach. "And Dad's okay with this?" "He trusts her judgment. Says we need to take risks to grow." She hesitated, then added, "Though I noticed him checking his heart medication twice this morning." The doorbell rang, and Mom's face brightened with practiced efficiency. "That'll be Mia. She's bringing the contractor by to discuss renovations." I stood, gathering my things. "I should go." "Please stay." Mom caught my hand. "You've always been good with numbers. Maybe you could look over the proposals?" Before I could answer, Mia burst in, trailing expensive perfume and a man in a suit. "Mom, you won't believe the concepts I've come up with." "Oh, Jade, didn't expect you here on a work day." "Just checking on Dad's health," I said pointedly. Mia's smile didn't waver. "He's fine, just needs to delegate more, which is why I'm taking on the expansion myself. Robert, show Mom the renderings." As the contractor spread blueprints across the table, I noticed Mom's hands twisting in her lap. The renovation costs were astronomical, each number a knife in our already bleeding accounts. "We'll need the first payment by Friday," Robert said. "No problem," Mia chirped. "Dad already approved everything." "Did he?" I interrupted, because I was just reviewing our quarterly projections. "Always the worrywart," Mia cut in smoothly. "Everything's handled, sis. Why don't you focus on your marketing reports and leave the big decisions to those of us with vision?" Mom's eyes darted between us like a trapped animal. "Actually," I said, "I'd love to see the approval documentation, since I'm still a partner." Something dangerous flashed in Mia's eyes. "Of course, I'll have Ryan drop them by your office tomorrow." She turned back to Robert. "Now, about those Italian marble countertops." I left before I could say something unforgivable, but paused outside the door when I heard Mia's voice drop to a whisper. "Mom, I'm worried about Jade. She's been so controlling lately. Liam mentioned she's been having trouble at work. Maybe the stress is getting to her. My phone buzzed. A text from Liam. Found something in the old account records. Call me ASAP. That evening, Liam spread documents across our dining table. Look at these transfer patterns. They're clever. Small amounts, different accounts, but they all lead back to shell companies registered under Ryan's name. Ryan? I stared at the evidence. He's been helping her? Seems like it. But there's more. Liam pulled up an email chain. They're planning to leverage the business as collateral for personal loans. If they default, my parents lose everything. The pieces clicked into place. The expansion, the rushed timeline, the careful manipulation. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Your father's in the emergency room. Stress attack. Please come. At the hospital, I found Mia already there, holding court with the doctors, making decisions, playing the devoted daughter. When she saw me, she hugged me tight. Thank God you're here, she whispered in my ear. Dad's going to need to sign some papers while he's lucid. Time-sensitive business stuff. Be a dear and help convince him? I pulled back, meeting her gaze. In that moment, I saw her clearly. Not my baby sister, but a predator wearing her face. Of course, I said softly. Whatever you need. She smiled, triumphant, not seeing my other hand sending a text to my lawyer. Start the audit, now. Behind us, the heart monitor beeped steadily, counting down the moments until our family would shatter forever. The audit results arrived while Dad was still in the hospital. I read them in the sterile cafeteria, my coffee growing cold as each page revealed another layer of Mia's deception. Not just our business accounts. She'd been siphoning money from our parents' retirement fund, setting up fake investment accounts, even taking out loans in Dad's name. My lawyer's voice crackled through my earbuds. The pattern suggests Ryan's been instrumental in setting up these shell companies. He's got experience in corporate law, knows exactly how to hide money trails. A familiar laugh echoed down the hallway. I looked up to see Mia charming a group of nurses, bringing them coffee and pastries. Always the generous one, always performing. What's our next move? I asked, watching her work the room. We can freeze the accounts, but... Jade, Mia spotted me, waving enthusiastically. Come here, you have to meet Dr. Chen. He's been taking such good care of Daddy. I disconnected the call and approached the group, noting how Mia's hand possessively gripped the doctor's arm. Actually, I said, I need to talk to you, privately. Her smile flickered for just a moment. Can it wait? We're discussing Dad's treatment plan. It's about the expansion contracts. That got her attention. She excused herself gracefully and followed me to an empty consultation room. The moment the door closed, her warmth vanished. Whatever you think you've found, she started. Cayman Islands accounts? I interrupted. Shell companies? Did you really think nobody would notice? Notice what? I'm saving this family's legacy while you hide in your little marketing department, playing it safe. She stepped closer, voice dropping. Dad understands business requires risks. Does he understand fraud? Her laugh was sharp as broken glass. Fraud, please. Everything I've done is perfectly legal. Ryan made sure of that. Ryan. The pieces clicked. That's why you married him. You needed a lawyer who'd play along. Something dangerous flashed in her eyes. Careful, sis. You're starting to sound paranoid. Maybe the stress is affecting your judgment? I heard about that presentation you bombed last week. My blood ran cold. I hadn't told anyone about that presentation, except Liam. What did you do? Me? Nothing. Her innocent expression was perfect. But it would be terrible if the board found out about your emotional instability, especially with your performance review coming up. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Where are you? Dad's asking for both of us. Mia checked her reflection in the window, adjusting her hair. We should go, family first, right? In Dad's room, she transformed again, the devoted daughter, gently helping him sit up, adjusting his pillows. I watched Mom watch her, saw the mixture of love and fear in her eyes. Girls, Dad's voice was weak but determined. We need to discuss the business. Mia produced a folder from her designer bag. Perfect timing. I have the papers for the expansion ready. Actually, I cut in, I have something you need to see first. I pulled out my own folder, the audit results. Jade, Mia warned, but Dad was already reading, his face growing paler with each page. Mom leaned over his shoulder, her hand flying to her mouth. This can't be right, she whispered. It's not, Mia snapped. Jade's obviously fabricated. The trust fund, Dad interrupted. The one for your mother's medical care. You emptied it? Mia's composure cracked just for a second. I can explain everything. The market opportunities. The heart monitor's beeping accelerated. Doctor, Mom called out in panic. As medical staff rushed in, Mia grabbed my arm, nails digging in. You've just declared war, she hissed. Hope you're ready for the casualties. I watched her storm out, then looked back at our parents, Dad fighting for breath, Mom crying quietly beside him. My phone lit up with another message, this time from Ryan. We need to talk, alone. The monitor's steady beeping filled the silence as I made my choice. I'd tried playing peacekeeper all my life. Now it was time to play Mia's game, and I had nothing left to lose. I'll be right back, I told Mom, already dialing my lawyer. There's something I need to do. I met Ryan at a coffee shop across town, far from the hospital, and Mia's watchful eyes. He looked different away from my sister, smaller somehow, his expensive suit hanging loose like borrowed armor. She's going to destroy everything, he said, stirring his untouched coffee. Not just the money, your parents, the business, you. She won't stop until it's all gone. Why tell me this now? He pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table. Because of this. The screen showed a series of messages between Mia and someone named Marcus. Plans for after the business collapsed. A new life, a fresh start, a fortune safely hidden away. No mention of Ryan. She's planning to leave you, I said. She's planning to leave everyone. His laugh was hollow. The expansion? It's designed to fail. The contracts are rigged to default. When it crashes, she walks away clean while your parents lose everything. My fingers tightened around my cup. And you helped her set this up. I did. He met my eyes. That's why I can help you stop it. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Liam. Your office was broken into. Files missing. Police here now. The world tilted sideways. I knew exactly which files were gone. She's moving faster than I thought, Ryan said, reading my expression. You need to decide now. Are you ready to do whatever it takes? My phone buzzed again. Mom, where are you? Mia's lawyer is here with emergency papers for Dad to sign. I have to go. I stood, but Ryan caught my wrist. Wait, there's something else. He hesitated. The anonymous tip about the accounts? It wasn't me. Someone else knows what she's doing. Someone close to her. At the hospital, I found Mia holding court in Dad's room, a stranger in an expensive suit beside her. Mom sat in the corner wringing her hands. Perfect timing, Mia beamed. We were just discussing the restructuring plan. To protect the business, of course. By having Dad sign over complete control while he's on heart medication? It's standard procedure, the lawyer interjected smoothly. Given the circumstances being that you're trying to strip our parents of everything before the audit goes public? Mia's smile never wavered, but her eyes went cold. Daddy, see how paranoid she's becoming? This is exactly why we need to act now, before her instability puts everything at risk. Dad looked between us, confusion clouding his face. The heart monitor's beeping increased slightly. "Don't sign anything," I said. "Please, stop causing drama," Mia snapped. "This is business, not one of your emotional crusades." My phone buzzed yet again. An unknown number. "Check the safety deposit box. Keys in your mother's jewelry box." Who's Marcus?" I asked suddenly. Mia's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms, the only crack in her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Should we ask Ryan?" For the first time, real fear flickered across her face. Then her expression hardened. "Mom, could you get Dad some water? And Jade, I think you should leave. You're clearly not in a rational state." "I'm not going anywhere." She stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "Yes, you are. Unless you want the board to receive certain evidence about corporate espionage. Amazing what security cameras can catch in an office late at night." The pieces clicked. "You broke into my office. Prove it." Her smile was razor sharp. "Oh, wait. The security footage from that night seems to have been corrupted. Only my copy remains." I looked at our father, pale and confused in his hospital bed, our mother hovering anxiously nearby. Everything I'd tried to protect, everything Mia was ready to destroy. "You've got 1 hour," Mia murmured. "Walk away or I burn everything down and make sure you take the fall." I met her gaze, finally seeing the truth. This wasn't about money or power. This was about breaking me. 1 hour, I repeated, turning to leave. But not to run, to find that safety deposit box. Someone wanted me to know something, and I had a feeling it would change everything. Behind me, I heard Mia's voice, sweet as poison. "Now, Daddy, let's talk about these papers." The safety deposit box key felt impossibly heavy in my palm as I stood in the bank vault. My mother's jewelry box had been exactly where the mysterious texter said it would be. Now, facing the metal drawer, I hesitated. "Would you like some privacy, Ms. Parker?" the bank clerk asked. I nodded, waiting until his footsteps faded before inserting the key. Inside lay a single manila envelope, yellowed with age. The handwriting on it stopped my breath. My grandmother's distinctive script, "For Jade, when the time comes." My phone buzzed. "Liam, tech startup meeting in 30. Still coming?" I'd almost forgotten. The investment meeting I'd arranged behind Mia's back, my first step toward financial independence. But the envelope in my hands felt like a ticking bomb. "Start without me," I texted back. Then I opened the envelope. Photos spilled out, newspaper clippings, bank statements, and a letter that made my hands shake. My phone rang. Mia. I let it go to voicemail, reading faster. The evidence painted a picture I'd never imagined. A pattern of manipulation and fraud going back decades, starting with our grandmother's estate. But not by Mia, by our mother. "I thought I'd find you here." I whirled around. Mom stood in the doorway, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "You knew," I said, "about the box, about Marcus." "Marcus was your grandmother's accountant." She stepped closer. "And yes, I knew what you'd find, because Mia found it 3 years ago." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. "She's been blackmailing you. Protecting the family, she calls it." Mom's laugh was brittle. "Just like I did all those years ago. The sins of the mother." "Why tell me now?" "Because she's becoming what I was, what I taught her to be, without even realizing it." Mom touched one of the photos. "But you're like your grandmother, strong enough to break the cycle." My phone buzzed again. The startup meeting. A chance at freedom, at a clean slate. "I've arranged something," I said slowly. "A new investment, separate from the family business. I could get you and Dad out." No. Mom's voice was firm. I made my choices. Now Mia's making hers. The question is, what will you choose? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Tick-tock, 1 hour's almost up. Mia. She has evidence against me, I said, from my office break-in. No, she doesn't. Mom pulled out her own phone, showing me security footage of Mia entering my office that night. I've been gathering my own insurance. I stared at her, this woman I thought I knew. Why didn't you stop her, all these years? The same reason you haven't. Fear, guilt, love. She touched my cheek. But maybe it's time we both stop protecting the wrong things. My phone buzzed one final time. Liam, startup CEO loves your proposal. Ready to sign. Where are you? I looked at the evidence in my hands, at my mother's tired face, at the security footage of my sister becoming exactly what our family legacy had created. I need to make some calls, I said, starting with our lawyer. She'll destroy everything, Mom warned. No. I gathered the documents, my voice steady. She'll try, but I'm not playing defense anymore. I stepped out of the vault, already dialing Liam's number. Behind me, I heard Mom's quiet words. Your grandmother would be proud. The startup meeting could wait. I had other investments to make now, in truth, in justice, in breaking a cycle of manipulation that had poisoned 3 generations of our family. My phone lit up with another message from Mia. Time's up, sis. Ready to lose everything? I typed back 4 words that would change everything. Game on, little sister. Then I called Ryan. It was time to show Mia what real strategy looked like. She thought she was protecting her secrets, but I had just inherited a legacy of them, and unlike her, I knew exactly how to use them. The war she'd started was about to become the one thing she never expected, a fair fight. The board meeting room felt like a tomb. I sat alone at the massive table, surrounded by empty chairs, waiting for the storm I'd unleashed. My grandmother's documents lay spread before me like a battle plan. The door opened. Mia swept in, followed by her lawyer and, my heart sank, the entire board of directors. Her smile was razor sharp. Sorry I'm late, she purred. I was just showing the board some interesting security footage from your office. I kept my face neutral. Really? The footage Mom has, or the edited version you created? Her smile flickered, just slightly. The board members took their seats, their faces grim. The CEO, Harrison, spoke first. Jade, these allegations of corporate espionage are extremely serious. They are, I agreed, sliding the first document forward. Almost as serious as systematic fraud dating back 20 years. Mia's lawyer jumped in. These documents aren't admissible. In court, maybe, I cut him off. But this isn't court. This is a family business. I met each board member's eyes. And family secrets have a way of coming out. My phone buzzed. A text from Liam. Ryan just called. Something's wrong. He's backing out. My stomach dropped, but I kept talking, laying out the evidence. The old fraud, the new schemes, the planned bankruptcy that would destroy everything our parents built. Mia's mask started cracking. You're going to destroy this family. No, that's your job. I pulled out the final document, the proof of her planned exit strategy with Marcus. I'm just finishing what grandmother started. The boardroom door burst open. Ryan stumbled in, his face ashen. It's your father, he gasped. He's had another heart attack. They don't think... I was already moving, but Mia blocked my path. How convenient, she hissed. Another crisis just when you're about to lose everything. Get out of my way. The board hasn't dismissed the charges against you, her lawyer interjected. Leave now and you'll be in breach. To hell with the charges. I shoved past them, but Mia grabbed my arm. You really think you can save them? Her voice was pure venom. "Look what your little revenge plot has done. Dad's dying, Mom's breaking, and you're about to be arrested for corporate theft. I warned you what would happen if you fought back." My phone buzzed again. "Mom, where are you? He's asking for both of us." "Choose, Jade," Mia whispered. "Your revenge or your family. You can't have both." I looked at the boardroom table, at the evidence that could destroy Mia, at the faces watching this family drama unfold, then at my sister's triumphant smile. "The documents are yours," I said quietly. "All of them. Just let me see Dad." "Smart girl." She gathered the papers with practiced efficiency. "I'll have security escort you out, permanently." As the guards led me to the elevator, I heard her addressing the board, spinning another perfect story about a troubled sister, a family tragedy, her burden of responsibility. In the lobby, Ryan caught up with me. "Jade, wait, there's something you need to know about Marcus." "Not now." I brushed past him, heading for my car. "Tell me at the hospital." "He's not just her exit strategy," Ryan called after me. But I was already gone, racing through traffic, trying not to think about what I'd just sacrificed. Years of work, my position, my chance at justice, all gone in an instant. At the hospital, I found Mom outside Dad's room, her face tear-stained. "He's stabilized," she said, but through the window, I saw Dad lying there, small and pale. Mia was already at his bedside, holding his hand, playing the devoted daughter. My phone lit up one last time. An unknown number. "You made the right choice. Family first. Always. M." I stared at the message, remembering grandmother's words in her letter. The truth isn't just about exposing lies. It's about choosing the right moment to strike. Mom squeezed my hand. "You gave up everything," she whispered. "No." I watched Mia through the window, saw the victory in her posture, the certainty that she'd won. I just changed the battlefield. But as Dad's monitors beeped steadily and Mia continued her performance, I wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. Sometimes I was learning. The price of doing the right thing feels exactly like surrender. The text from Ryan came at midnight. "Marcus is your father's illegitimate son. Mia's known for years, using it to control Mom. Meeting them tonight at the marina. Last chance to stop this." I stared at my phone, pieces clicking into place, the mysterious messages, Mom's guilt, Mia's endless leverage. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the marina parking lot. A single yacht glowed against the darkness, voices carrying across the water. I recognized Mia's laugh, sharp as broken glass. "The papers are signed," she was saying. "Once the transfer clears tomorrow, there's nothing they can do." I stepped onto the dock, my footsteps hollow against the wood. 3 figures turned, Mia, Ryan, and a man I'd never met but somehow recognized. Marcus had our father's eyes. "Well?" Mia's smile was vicious. "The prodigal sister arrives." "It's over, Mia." I held up my phone. "Ryan sent me everything. The real documents, the recordings, Marcus's DNA test." "Did he?" She glanced at her husband. "Show her, darling." Ryan pulled out a gun. "Sorry, Jade," he said quietly. "But family comes first." My laugh surprised even me. "That's what this was about? Family? You've been destroying ours for years." "I've been protecting it." Mia's composure cracked. "While you played perfect daughter, I kept Dad's dirty secret. I protected Mom from the truth. I built everything we have. By stealing, blackmailing, driving Dad to heart attacks, by doing what needed to be done." She stepped closer, trembling. "You have no idea what it's like, living in your shadow. The responsible one, the successful one. Even now, you think you can swoop in and save everyone. This isn't about saving anyone anymore." I met Marcus's gaze. It's about the truth. The truth? Mia laughed. The truth is, you've already lost. The business is mine. The board believes you're unstable, and tomorrow, everything transfers to offshore accounts. Check your phone, I said quietly. She frowned, pulling it out. Her face went white. That's a live stream, I continued. To the board, the police, and our parents. Been broadcasting since I arrived. I turned to Marcus. They heard everything. About Dad, about the fraud, about your deal with Mia. Ryan's gun wavered. Mia, shut up. She grabbed the weapon from him. You think this changes anything? I still win. The transfers are frozen, I interrupted. Check your accounts. Her fingers flew over her phone screen, the color drained from her face. How? Remember when I gave you grandmother's documents? You were so busy winning, you didn't notice what I kept. I pulled out a single paper, her original will, the one giving controlling interest to her silent partner, Marcus's mother. Marcus stepped forward. What? She knew Mia about everything, and she made sure the truth would come out when it needed to. Sirens wailed in the distance. Mia's hand tightened on the gun. You're lying. Am I? Check your precious offshore accounts again. Notice who just transferred everything back? Marcus held up his phone. It's done. All of it. Mia's scream of rage echoed across the water. The gun swung toward me. I should have done this years ago. Mia, don't. Ryan reached for her. The gunshot cracked like thunder. I felt the impact before the pain, stumbling backward. But it was Ryan who fell, having shoved me aside at the last second. Mia stood frozen, the gun slipping from her fingers. In the distance, police lights painted the marina in red and blue. You never understood, I gasped, pressing my hand against the graze on my shoulder. This wasn't about winning. It was about stopping the cycle. For all of us. Marcus caught Mia as her legs gave out, as the truth of what she'd done finally hit her. Her sobs mixed with the approaching sirens, with Ryan's pained breathing, with the gentle lap of waves against the dock. I'm sorry, she whispered over and over. I'm so sorry. I watched the police boats approach, remembering grandmother's last words in her letter. The truth hurts, but lies destroy. Choose wisely. I had. And as I stood there, bleeding and victorious, I realized the hardest truth of all. Sometimes winning feels exactly like losing. Behind us, the sun began to rise over the water, painting everything in shades of redemption and regret. The lake house windows reflected the sunset as I pulled into the driveway. Through the glass, I could see Mom arranging flowers, Dad reading in his favorite chair, a scene of peace that had cost us everything to achieve. Marcus stood on the deck, watching my arrival. Since the marina incident, he'd become an unexpected ally in rebuilding what Mia had broken. Now he nodded in greeting, his expression carrying the same weight of complicated emotions I felt every time I saw our father's features in his face. She's asking for you, he said quietly. I found Mia in the sunroom, where we'd installed her ankle monitor's base station. She looked smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced by simple cotton, her perfectly styled hair now natural and streaked with gray. The prosecutor called, she said without looking up. They're offering a deal. I know. I sat across from her. House arrest instead of prison if you cooperate with the financial investigation. Ryan took a similar deal. Her laugh was hollow. Funny how marriage vows mean nothing when faced with federal charges. Through the window, I watched Dad stand shakily, Mom instantly at his side. Their recovery was slow but steady, now that the weight of secrets had lifted. Why did you do it? I asked finally. All of it? Because I couldn't be you. Her voice cracked. Perfect, responsible Jade. Dad's pride, Mom's rock, everyone's favorite. She met my eyes. Do you know what it's like living in a shadow that gets darker every year? You could have talked to me, like you talked to me, about the startup, about Marcus. She shook her head. We stopped being sisters long before I started stealing. Mom appeared in the doorway, hesitating before entering. Dinner's ready. Marcus is staying. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. I'll bring a plate in here, I said, standing. No. Mia's voice was firm. I'll come to the table. The family dinner was awkward, conversations starting and stopping like faulty engines. Dad asked Marcus about his work. Mom passed dishes with trembling hands. Mia picked at her food, the ankle monitor a constant reminder of boundaries. I found something today, Mom said suddenly, pulling out an old photograph. Remember this? The image showed two little girls in matching dresses, arms around each other, laughing at some forgotten joke. Mia and me, before shadows and secrets, before competition and revenge. We were happy then, Mia whispered. We were innocent, I corrected. There's a difference. After dinner, I found Mom in the kitchen, crying over the dishes. I should have told you both, she said, about Marcus, about everything. Maybe if I had. We all made choices, Mom. I took the dish from her shaking hands. Even grandmother, with her secret will and hidden plans. She knew this day would come. Mom touched my cheek. She knew you'd be strong enough to break the cycle. Later, as I prepared to leave, Mia caught my arm. I found this in my old things. She handed me a folded paper. You should have it. It was a childhood drawing. Two stick figures holding hands, labeled Big Sister and Little Sister, in crayon. I wanted to be just like you, she said softly, until I realized I couldn't. Then I wanted to destroy you instead. And now? She touched her ankle monitor. Now I'm trying to remember who I was before I became this person. I looked at the drawing, at our younger selves' simple love and trust. Maybe we both need to remember. The sunset painted the lake in shades of gold as I drove away, Marcus's truck following behind. In my rearview mirror, I saw Mom and Dad on the porch, Mia standing slightly apart but present. A family fractured but not destroyed, healing in the spaces between forgiveness and consequence. My phone lit up with a text from Liam. Coming home? Home. Not the battlefield this had become, not the prison of expectations it used to be. Just home. Yes, I typed back, then added, but I might need to make a few more stops along the way. Because some journeys don't end with victory or defeat. They end with understanding that both healing and scars can exist in the same heart, that love and hurt can share the same blood, and that sometimes the hardest person to forgive isn't your enemy, but the reflection in your rearview mirror, driving away from what was toward what could be.